Thank you. Appreciate that. So it's 5 o'clock, and so because of the way we want to start this evening, first thing I'm going to ask everyone
schedule your fall 2011 appointments. In order to schedule your appointments for complete drop-off and for arrival time, please log into your housing portal anytime after today, 12:15. Unless scheduled appointments have only 8 hours prior to the drop-off arrival time.
So that's 2 days. You don't wait on the decision day.
To sign.
just a reminder that you need a reminder that you need to use microphones.
Oh, look, we can see other people.
This is so stupid.
So honestly, if this is part of their plan, then that's a big deal.
Watch on this.
+16039307776 is now exiting.
So watch on this. I can't hear it either.
I don't have speakers.
I'll have to do it on the laptop. It's not great. You listen and I just watch the screen.
A little bit too.
I don't know how that works.
No, here.
There's no point. Just take it out.
How about you say it? You just let me know how it goes.
We can't hear anything. You're
Unknown
muted.
participant is now joining.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathleen Murphy, the interim superintendent of schools for the Concord School District, and I want to welcome you all here tonight, this afternoon, and into early evening for our parent forum. I'm asking that everyone would
Nicole is now
mute their
joining.
mics. I'm unmuted. So let me start by welcoming you, and joining us tonight to help with the presentation will be the Assistant Superintendent, Donna Pally, and our Facilities Director, Matt Cashman. Also with us this evening, listening, are the members of the Concord School Board, as well as our building leaders, the principals and assistant principals, and staff members in the district. Before we begin, I just want to kind of go over how we'll format this evening. First of all, if you have questions, we're going to ask that you put them into the chat room, and you can post those questions, and we will have somebody monitoring those questions, and they will, when we finish our brief presentation, we will have them read the questions out loud. Also, if you wish to speak tonight, just write your name into the chat box, and we will unmute your mic, or you will have to unmute your mic, and then you will be able to speak. We are asking, if you do speak tonight, that you keep your questions, comments to just a couple of minutes, so that that will enable us to allow as many of our participants that we have on tonight, and looks like we're somewhere around 263 participants as we speak. So we want to try to give everybody a chance. Tonight's format is we're going to focus this. We'd like to focus on the elementary piece first for the first hour, and then move on to middle school, and then on to the high school. So we know that there will be changes at around 7:05, 6, and then again at 7 to switch groups. So we like to target our comments right now with the elementary groups. The format for tonight is we're going to give you a very brief overview of the plan that we have been working on since May, followed by a question and answer period for everyone. As I explained, we've broken it up into 3 sections: elementary, middle, and high school. So elementary will go up first. Just to note, the plan itself, both the detailed plan and tonight's abbreviated plan, is posted on the district's website under Return to School 2020. You'll see that on the web page. And so my final comments before we begin is I really want you to know that the situations in terms of this pandemic, our response to it to get the children back to school, it's constantly evolving. There isn't a day goes by that we haven't had some type of new information, some new data that's released from various organizations, both from scientists and the medical field. So we are working really hard to stay on top of that. Without any further ado, I'd like to begin. I'm going to begin by introducing a few of the slides. So if you want to follow along, we hope to get through this in about 10 to 12 minutes. So Donna, could you go to the slides? Okay, these, I'm not going to read them. They're on the website, but these are the tenets. These are the things that drove how we developed this plan, those important pieces of our work that support students every day. So that's the guiding, we call them the guiding principles, and truly drove the work and in development of this plan. Just going on, we have conducted several surveys. There was a survey back in June of 2020 where was completed by over 1,000 families and 640 students and 365 staff members. And again, this feedback helped drive the planning and the development of the plan. We also conducted a second survey. The responses were terrific, 2,500, representing 2,500 students. So we had a great response again in July on the survey. Really appreciate parents' involvement. Tonight's a perfect example. We're up to 282 parents on this call. And listen, you have been fabulous at sending in emails. We've read every single one of them. We've actually saved them so that we can share those with our school board. And so I appreciate all that feedback. It's been really helpful for us. So our teaching and learning models, we use 3 models to try to develop a plan to help bring our kids back. The first option was fully remote. It's the same as what we did in the spring. That was pretty much ordered, though, as you recall, by the governor in an executive order that we go to fully remote. The second option we have is fully in-person. That's bringing all of our students back to school as it was prior to COVID-19. And the third model that we'll present tonight is what we call hybrid. It's a combination model of remote and in-person. I'd like to just quickly go over those 3 models if I could. The full in-person model is difficult for us because we are complying to CDC rules of 6 feet distancing. Our classrooms will not allow us to have 6 feet distancing given the class size. So just keep that in mind. Classroom space is difficult. And that's including using other spaces in the school, for instance, the cafeteria, the library, and other classrooms, the gymnasium. Still doesn't give us enough space to do that with all kids. We've also looked at off-campus sites, what would be available in the community. But the concern that we have and the barrier, if you will, that's that's difficult is how do we staff that? How do we supervise it? And when I talk about supervising, we're putting people out in buildings that have to meet fire code and safety codes. We also have to have nursing and support services in those sites. We can't just take 30 kids and put them in a site and then leave them without any of the support. So that's been a challenge for us also. We do know that the number of students who are opting for full remote learning will impact our ability to bring back additional students into the building full time. So we have, via the surveys, parents approximately anywhere between 20 and 25% have said that they are leaning towards remote. So if those parents choose remote, which they will be able to do, that will bring down the number of students in a classroom, and we may be better able to handle them in the classroom. And all of this is impacted by state guidance. The full remote model, very much like we did in the spring, but we learned some things in the spring. We learned that we needed more face-to-face. We learned that we needed more interaction. The kids needed to be with their friends and their peers and interact in social ways. And you know how important that is for our students. And then we wanted to make sure that we had more ongoing communication and with families and our students and plenty of feedback. The youngsters, the students asked for that. Excuse me. And we also know that we needed more support for our students that were at risk and needed additional help. The third combination is the hybrid model. And we are proposing that students would come back, we would assign them in two groups, either A group or B group. A group would meet on Monday and Thursday, and the B group would meet on Tuesday and Friday. Now we've had some feedback, some great feedback. Why don't we do Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday for the groups? A would be Monday, Tuesday, B would be Thursday, Friday. The reason is we felt it was such a long time before B group got back in with us. So we wanted to be able to get the kids, the students back in with us into school. So that's why we split it like we did with a Monday, Thursday, and a Tuesday, Friday. Wednesday will be the day where kids will have more remote activities. They will have their responsive classroom, their class meetings, more instruction for at-risk students, on and off line assignments. This will also give our teachers a chance to be able to interact with students and families in very small groups. We also know that youngsters that are vulnerable and at risk, we may need to bring them in more so that they get their specialized instruction. Perhaps that's additional reading and math. Perhaps it's occupational therapy, speech and language, whatever that might look like. This will give us an opportunity to bring those youngsters in. Many parents ask, well, how will we know what group we're in? And that notification will be done by our building administrators, the principal, assistant principals. So combination in this model, we want to be very clear that the recommendation right now is that students and staff will be required to wear masks while in the building. Now, we absolutely acknowledge that that will be difficult for some students, and we will accommodate those students. We will make the necessary accommodations and look for other ways in which to accommodate them. Perhaps it's a shield rather than a mask. We also know how difficult it will be for our younger students, our preschool and primary age students. But we'll ensure that they have mask breaks throughout the day. And we do ask parents to help us out by practicing wearing the masks. I know I see a lot of young kids around wearing their masks with the help of their parents, so we really appreciate that also. I want to talk a little bit about the building and what that means in the building, so I'm going to ask Matt Cashman to jump in here and talk a little bit about the building pieces to this model. Matt, are you there? You may be on mute.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me now?
I can hear you now, Matt. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. On the combination hybrid models, looking at 8 to 12 students per classroom, maintaining the 6-foot distances inside the classroom. We're looking at assigned permanent seats for those students.
2 participants are now
Also
joining.
looking at limiting the sharing of materials and supplies in the building. I'm working with principals, and we'll continue to work with principals to look for passageways that also minimize groups gathering together. And then we're going to be receiving tents, and all the way up until the end of August, we're going to have tents at all of the schools to really encourage outside meeting of students. And I'll note that we're looking to not have large group meetings or events in this model. Kathleen, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Matt. Number of families have asked about the school calendar. What will happen? As you know, the governor allowed the teachers to have 3 more days in which to prepare for whatever model is used. And depending on the model that we use, and the decision is made about what model is used by the school board, then I will make the appropriate recommendations relative to the school calendar. Right now, if we have a hybrid with remote and in school, then we would ask for a later date so that teachers could be prepared for that. But if we don't need that and it's all remote, we may not need those extra days, and we'll bring the kids in earlier. Hopefully by the August 3rd school board meeting, the board will make those decisions. It's currently on their agenda for Monday, August 3rd, so hopefully we'll have an answer for everyone. And the last slide for me tonight is that many parents ask, how will you know what to do? How will you know to be in remote or maybe hybrid or in school? What will drive the decisions as to what model you use? And we'll be able to pivot from one to another. And we will, because we're getting constant updates on the status of COVID-19. I think at the end of this PowerPoint, you'll see some great resources that actually give you a day-by-day analysis of outbreaks in Merrimack County as well as in Concord. We also have medical guidance. We're very fortunate to have a Department of Public Health. It's been great. We also have the services of a doctor over at Concord Hospital that is an infectious disease doctor who was in charge of that at the hospital, so he's been a terrific help to us. Obviously, you know, state and federal guidance so that we can decide and get that support we need if we should have to make a move. So parents have asked that question. I'd like to go to Donna, and Donna's going to talk a little bit about social emotional.
Okay, so we know that
Nicole
this has been,
is now
we know that
exiting.
this has been a difficult time. It's been a difficult time for adults and for children, and we are going to be
Is now
focusing.
joining.
We are going to be focusing on social emotional well-being at the beginning of the year and throughout the year, no matter whether we're in person or remote. We will no doubt place an emphasis on what we know is so critical, that is building relationships and building that community and making sure we give kids time to settle in at the beginning of the year, to understand new expectations. Again, no matter whether we're remote or in person, this is a very large emphasis for us. Buildings will be planning back to school events, whether again they're remote or in person, and you'll be hearing about those, and that includes kindergarten screenings and orientations and transition activities. And certainly we'll be monitoring very closely students to see what additional supports and services they may require. And we will have a range of those available to our students, again, whether remote or in person. I want to talk just for a minute about student services, an area that's a great concern. Some of our most challenged students, some of our most vulnerable students have even more of a difficult experience in
2
schooling right now.
participants are now
We
joining.
want to make sure that we're providing every opportunity for them to engage and to learn. And we will offer, we're hoping to offer
Is now joining.
services. Special education, English language learning, Title I services. Some students we know will opt for remote services. We are not planning at this time to offer in-home services. We are reaching out to our families of students with needs to understand more about what their specific needs are, as well as to our district placements and our charter schools as we go forward and understand more about our model. Learning loss and understanding learning loss will be a big piece of this. And there's no doubt that we will need additional PPE. We're making plans for that. Matt and his team are working very closely on that, as well as the installation of various plexiglass partitions in certain areas that are needed for staff and student safety. Meetings with parents will be held remotely going forward, and of course other services like translation services and counseling and social emotional supports will be available. For technology, we were in a pretty good place as we started this. We already had almost all one-to-one devices, except for our kindergartners. We have purchased additional devices, and we have purchased devices for our staff. Over the course of the summer and into the fall, we'll be rolling those out. We will be establishing, as we did last time, times and days for technology pickups as appropriate. We'll have a complete help desk available for people, as we've had in the past, again, whether it's in person or remotely. And this time we want to take the time to provide technology training for families, certainly for students, but we really want to support families in understanding the device, the applications that we're using, and also to make sure we support our community around their need for internet. We do know that there are 2 assessments that the state is going to ask our students to take in the fall. So just a quick note about that. Students in grade 4 to 8 are going to be asked to take a screening assessment in math and in language arts, 30 minutes each. And the SATs at this point are expected to be offered in the school in the fall as well. Neither of these are probably a potential for remote, but we'll take our cues from the state and the college boards.
I guess I'll quickly say that the Regional Technical Center will be open because of our regional partners, and the administration there is trying to work out a schedule, but they plan on being open to accommodate all 9 schools that access our Regional Technical Center. Matt, you want to jump in to screening?
Absolutely. Screening and procedures at home. Parents and guardians will be asked to screen at home, and we will provide a checklist for that. We'll have thermometers for no-touch thermometers for any family in need. We ask that any child that screens 100 or above, that they stay home and we begin remote learning. And obviously, if you're exposed to COVID-19, we ask that you stay home as well. Next slide. In this slide, we're talking about having staff members and students also be screened before entering the building. We have a lot of thermometers. We're going to ask people to get tested then. And again, it's a little repetitive, but anyone with 100 degrees or above, we ask them to stay at home. And if it's a student, we'll ask them to return in a private vehicle. Next screen. As always, we encourage hand washing and sanitizing. Any times when you're entering the building, if you touch someone else's hands or your face, using the bathroom, snack times, lunch times, or in the playground. We are going to have hand sanitizing station, wall-mounted units in every classroom. Next slide. We have adequate supply of what we brought in February, which is electrostatic sprayers. We use CDC-approved disinfectants to apply the product onto all hard surfaces. We're also going to be making available spray bottles with disinfectant and rags for every classroom. In the middle and the high school, we're going to ask students and staff and encourage them to wipe down their desks before leaving the class. Again, we talked about hand sanitizers will be in the classrooms. And we're also looking at modifying or adjusting the custodial schedules based on the model we adopt. Next slide. I talk a little bit about the 2 disinfectants that we use. One is Hyperfect 256 and another is Virotabs. I will have SDS safety data sheets available for anybody who who wants to see it, but I'll have them available at the school. These two products have been approved by the CDC, and it's what we currently use and have been using now for quite a while. Next slide. Visitors are discouraged from entering the building, so unless it's an emergency situation, would handle that on a case-by-case basis. We, as mentioned earlier, I think by Donna, parent meetings will be held remotely, and volunteers, at least at the start, will not be working in our buildings. So we're about to show you the next 3 slides, and I'm going to cover them very briefly just in the interest of time for this presentation. We'll have a protocol responses to symptoms at the school if a student comes in and presents symptoms. We'll also have responses if there's a diagnosis in the school and if there's a diagnosis of COVID as well at home. We have certain protocols. We've been working with public health officials, and as I think Superintendent Murphy mentioned, we will also be working with medical staff to continue our process. Donna, if you could move to, there you go. Just want to alert everybody, a lot of people are talking about air handling and filtration. About 3 years ago, we started a program with an outside independent mechanical vendor who comes in and changes all of our air handling filters in all of our schools. We have MERV 8 and MERV 14 filters in our schools. We are also working with Siemens, our building automation system company, to maximize airflow into the classrooms, which is per suggested in dealing with this. We're also working with HVAC experts from trained Siemens, and have also reached out to the mechanical engineers of record for our schools that designed our air handling systems. So we'll be providing future information on that. The guidance also calls to keep windows open when possible and if needed. Next is food service, and I think Donna, doing that?
Yes, we just want to very briefly say that we won't be having large groups in our cafeterias. We might perhaps use it for very small groups of students. Otherwise, they'll be eating in other locations, potentially their classroom or other locations, or especially good outside. The meals will be grab and go. They will not be going through a system of choosing their meals. We are awaiting waivers for details on the delivery of food into the community, which we have done last spring and hope to do again this year. Those involve federal and state waivers.
No, I don't have speakers.
We'll follow all protocols, obviously around PPE for our food service folks.
Thanks, Donna. And I'm going to talk a little bit about transportation. Thanks to all the parents who responded around their ability to provide transportation. That's really appreciated, because in a 77-passenger bus, we can perhaps seat 26 youngsters on that bus, which really limits our ability to get the kids to school in a timely way. We are doing 1 student per seat and in a zigzag fashion so that there's a distance, there's an ample amount of distance. We do know that families can sit together. That's not a problem. Seats will be assigned, and they will be a permanent assignment. And we do that so that we know who's sitting where, and in case there's any problems, any outbreak, we would be able to do contact tracing. Masks and face coverings will be
Rebecca McHugh
will be required on the bus, and windows will be open. Buses are sanitized daily, and between runs, we are recommending that there not be field trips that require bus transportation out of district at this time. The next slide, just quickly, the consultation. Those are the people that we work with and that have given us direction over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. I've mentioned some of them. We also have a communication plan that we're using so that we can get more information out. Again, I'm going to encourage you to go to the district website under Return to School 2020. There's materials there. I understand that some people may not have been able to get in tonight because of the numbers that requested to come in and the numbers that are allowed through Microsoft Teams. But we will have another session on Thursday afternoon, starting at 5. So if you hear of someone who wasn't able to get on tonight, I'm sorry. I don't know how to increase our limits, but we will have another session on Thursday for this. And again, communication, we will continue to get that out. Athletics is ongoing at the high school. They're out there now with all the social distancing and the proper procedures and protocols. So that the recommendation right now, we did finally get a recommendation from NHIAA, and they are going forward with athletic events. So just to keep that in mind. And really, next
Unknown
steps.
participant is now exiting.
I think next steps were the board meeting on August 3rd, and they will be considering the options and deciding on that evening what the best option is for the students of Concord. So with that, and I know
Gretchen
it went a little bit
is
long.
now joining.
We have a list of resources. I forgot about that, so please feel free to take a look at those. But questions? Can we start with some questions? And I'm sure we have some.
I have a, what's that noise? Wow. I have a quick question. I'm trying to find out how do you chat? How do you write down your questions? There's
Is
no
now
chat
joining.
icon.
Multiple people are now exiting.
So you look, you hover your pointer, your arrow over when a bar comes up, it has a red phone on the right, and then two over is a little, almost looks like a cartoon box.
McHugh family.
Pick that, and you'll see the
Is
chat.
now joining.
Thank
A
you.
cartoon box? I don't have a cartoon box. I have a phone.
A little speaking box. It's 2 over from the phone.
No, that's the one where I have to lower or raise my hand.
To the right of that.
With 3 dots?
It's there on anyone's screen.
Okay. You're not seeing the chat box?
No,
It's not on there.
no, there's no chat.
There's no
Janice,
chat.
Janice,
No.
mine is on the left-hand
You
side.
see chat.
Where?
The left-hand side. I have activity,
I
chat.
see mine at the top of my screen, upper right.
Okay, it may depend on your setup then on your computer. Upper right,
Unknown
let's take a look at
participant
that.
is now joining.
No, I don't have anything anywhere where I can type into a chat screen.
No, me either.
I have 5 teachers online. We're all saying the same thing right now.
Janice,
Okay,
text me and I'll send it in.
all right, we'll see if we can fix that. We have not seen that happen before, and we will see if we can make that. And meanwhile, I would invite the person who questioned about the chat to just speak up and give us your question.
Okay, one of the questions I had was if you're doing like talking about doing the hybrid program, how are you going to socially distance kindergartners?
+16034107818 is now exiting.
If they're new kindergartner kids coming in, kindergartners are like, I want my mommy, I can't leave. They're very crying all the time, looking for their parents. Normally we console them or you give them a hug and try to talk to them. How are you going to do that from 6 feet apart?
So our medical folks are letting us know that our younger children, preschool, and our very primary age children, their world is going to look a little bit different, and they're going to be having more opportunities to connect with each other, definitely outside and even in the school. So we are going to see that those very young children are going to be working in centers as they normally would, and we understand that they have different needs than the older children for comfort and for support. It would be so helpful if everyone could mute their microphones as they come in.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I would like to know if a child does come down with COVID in a particular class. I understand that you're going to isolate them and send them home. But what about the rest of the school or whoever they have come in contact with? Will we be notified, and will those kids also have to quarantine?
Well,
You want me to
I
take?
could jump in on a little bit of that. One of the guidance from the state says that if you have any symptomatic child or staff in the building, you immediately notify HHS, and they have continually told us that they will provide someone instantaneously down to see us and guide us with the right path forward.
And let me continue to answer that question, and that has been brought to our attention on a number of emails about notifications.
Is now joining.
And we will be notifying families relative to a student or a staff member that has been diagnosed with COVID. We know that some students will come to school, they don't feel well, they might have an earache, they might have a toothache, a stomach ache, and it isn't COVID-19. We're not going to respond to every parent. We would respond when, in fact, we received the diagnosis that that youngster, that teacher was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Okay, and I guess
I have a question.
We're going to use the raising hands. So click your raising hand, and we will call on you one at a time. Pam Walsh, you are first. Would you unmute and ask your question?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had pressed the button. But yes, what's the protocol going to be on notifying parents? You said that yes, you will, but is it if there's a suspected case? Is there going to be something in writing? Calling HHS and then waiting for that process to play out seems like there needs to be more to it than that.
There will be a written plan for this where we have already, if you take a look at the slides, you'll see some of the details of it, including the closing of the school for an actual COVID diagnosis. But we will have this in writing for you. Absolutely. That's a completely reasonable and fair thing to ask. Jeff Van Pelt.
Yeah, hi, thanks. And first of all, thanks you guys for communicating on this stuff. It's really important for, I think, all of us parents right now. So it's very much appreciated. Question I have is, under the hybrid model and the in-person model, if that's happening simultaneously, how can the teachers be expected to sort of get their hands around everybody and put their arms around everybody?
That's a great question, Jeff. Thank you for asking, and we get that also. We know that some of our teachers may not be able to be in the classroom given some conditions that put them at high risk. And those staff members have indicated that they would do remote learning. So we will have, obviously, because we have students who will be remote learning, our classes will be a little bit smaller. So we'll have some teachers who will teach the class in-house, in the school, and other teachers who will be covering all of the students who chose to be remote learners. We are not asking our teachers to do both. That would be a Herculean effort, and we know that that would be impossible.
All right, great, thank you.
Matt Hansen.
I had a quick question. How do I put myself in line to ask my question?
To put up your hand, there's a little hand icon that you can touch, and it'll put your hand up.
Okay, I tried to send my question through a chat. I'm on the cell phone, not the computer, so I'm not seeing a hand icon.
Yes, I'm sorry. If you're on the phone, then we can see your phone number, and we will call you by number. Why don't you go ahead now, since you're on? Go ahead.
Okay. I just had a quick question. So my son would be going into the first grade. He has autism and he has an IEP. And I've just been very confused on whether or not I should be sending him back to school. It's very uncomfortable for everybody in my household to think about sending him to school, but I didn't know if there was going to be like specific supports in place for him and for other children that have these types of issues that don't feel comfortable sending their children to the building.
There will be remote special services provided as well. For students who need them, we will provide remotes. If that's the choice you make, we will provide remote services to students.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Jennifer Carrier?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to know, I actually have a couple different questions. I'm one of the bus drivers for your district, and I guess one of the important questions I have for you is windows down. What are we doing on cold mornings and in the middle of winters?
Right. Thank you. We know that there's not every day that we can have the windows open. Whenever possible, we will.
Okay.
But we absolutely understand that. It's raining out. You can't leave the windows open, so they will be closed.
Okay. And my other question to you folks is, did anybody consider continuing the remote learning until the predicted second wave has either moved through or, passed by, be it whether it came or not?
Remember, tonight, we presented 3 proposals. Coming back full-time with everybody, continuing with remote learning like we did in the spring, and this hybrid, which gives us an opportunity to have the kids, the students in school with their teachers for a few days a week. So, yeah, that's still on the table. The final decision has not been made.
Okay, do you guys have I saw something about August 3rd, and forgive me, I don't remember what it was. That's not when you're making the decision, correct?
Well, we are making the decision. We're not making the decision. The school board will present this again to the school board on Monday, August 3rd. That decision is in their hands as school board. And we needed to do that because so many of the parents in emailing us and sending us their concerns that they needed to plan. They needed to plan what their life would be like depending on the model that was chosen.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I am the union chair in our department, and my phone has been blowing up. So people are anticipating being last-minuted, and we would all greatly appreciate if that wasn't the case. So thank you in doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle C.
Hi, I guess my question is 2-part. So you did say that kids were to have their temperatures taken before going to school. So my first question is, does that mean you guys are not going to be taking their temperatures before they enter the building?
That's a great question to make sure we're clear on. We have a 2-part screening process. We're going to ask parents to take temperatures at home and to do the screening at home with their children, because the best case scenario is to not have students come to school if they have any symptoms. So we're going to provide information and training and support on how to do that at home, and even provide a digital thermometer for people who need it. But we are also going to do a second round of that when they come to school before they go in the building. So we're
every single day?
Yes, we're actually doing a double thing for staff. Our plan right now for staff and for students. That has been the advice that we've received from our consultants.
Okay, then I don't need to ask my follow-up question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mara LaCroix.
Stacy is now exiting.
I'll go on, and if you come up, you can sneak in.
I'm sorry.
I
hate to interrupt.
Is now exiting.
I can't raise my hand or ask, put a chat in
so I'm sorry, but I'm interrupting. I appreciate your
Okay.
time.
Go ahead.
My question is around technology, and my son will be going into 4th grade, and I have a daughter going into 8th grade. But for the 3rd grade, the last 3 months of school, my son's teacher did not have the technology she needed. There were no face-to-face meetings. There was one at the end of the year, and it was, see your pet. So how are we making sure that if a teacher's technology isn't working, it is fixed immediately, as opposed to, sorry, you don't have video for 3 months?
All right. Thanks for your question. We learned from the parents that they wanted to see more face-to-face time with teachers and students in the remote model. And so we are working with our staff and our teachers to, one, ensure that they have the proper equipment, that their internet access is alive and well, if you will, and that they have the skills to be able to do the kind of videoing as well as the face-to-face activities with the students. So that was really important to us if we return to the remote model.
And then just a follow-up, thank you for that answer. Is there a plan for whatever plan we go back with, but equality between what each classroom is doing? There were classrooms that had meetings weekly, there were classrooms that did it daily, there were classrooms that didn't do it at all. So is there going to be, a standard?
Yes, very much so, and we're working on that now. We heard that feedback from a number of families, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen this time around for our remote learning. So we are working very closely. It's one of our highest priorities. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate all your hard work.
You're welcome. Thank you. Janine Tadakowski.
Yes, thank you, and great job pronunciating our last name, because I know it's a tricky one. Actually, the previous question was basically mine as well. I just wanted to know if, in addition to making sure that they have the technology and looking at making sure that the expectations and guidance to all of the teachers are the same, is there going to be a place and model to evaluate that they are meeting those goals and meeting with the kids? Unfortunately, my child also had a teacher that was not comfortable doing any type of Google Meet aside from a couple-minute phone call a week, and was hearing other children were getting several a day. So it was very inefficient and not fair across the board.
Well, we were asked to do a pretty quick turnaround in terms of going from a, regular classroom to the remote. And so we asked a lot of our teachers and asked them to pivot right into that remote learning. But we also learned a lot from that. And one of the things we learned is that we needed to make sure that we gave our teachers more training, more opportunities. They've done some summer training, and then we'll be kicking off more training for them throughout the month of August. So that they are capable and able to provide that attention to the youngsters. The other piece I want to sort of accentuate here is the importance of a schedule for the kids. And I think that will
participant is now joining.
I think that will help the teachers in terms of delivering equity from classroom to classroom, in that they have a schedule, and this is what we would expect of the kids each day and what we would expect of the teachers every day.
Great, thank you.
Katrina.
Donna, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Katrina, could you wait for just 1 second? Could you add me to your list, Donna Pally? It's Jessica Jordan. I'm sorry. I'm talking from my phone, and I'm unable to raise my hand.
Perfect, Jessica. We'll do that. Thank you.
I don't want to.
All right.
And
Katrina.
Anastasia as well, please. I also have a question. I can raise my hand. Anastasia.
Anastasia also. Thank you. Katrina Missley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you guys again for all your hard work. I don't envy you your position at all. My question is just a clarifying question. So parents will have the option to choose remote learning, correct?
Correct.
And based on the number of families who choose to learn remotely, that will guide the school board in deciding whether to do full in-person or hybrid. So it's a numbers situation, right?
I'm sure they'll have a lot of different factors they're considering, but that's got to have to be one of them, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Hi.
Just-
I also can't raise my hand or get in a chat. My name is Rob, so whenever you get me, I'll.
Okay, Rob, you're in the queue. Jessica, you're next.
Also, Donna,
So
can you
anyways,
also
I
add
my hand, I
Courtney?
can get in.
No, it's a different Jessica.
Jessica Jordan?
Sorry, Jessica Jordan?
Oh, yes, thank you. As a parent of an incoming kindergartner, my concern is based on the safety in terms of class size numbers, how that will impact her learning if this is done in a hybrid fashion, going Monday and Thursday, or going Tuesday and Friday. My child has been practicing with a mask. However, I'm still concerned about the students around her who refuse to wear a mask. I understand that it is not mandated that she will need to wear one, but she will be wearing one. And I would fully expect that the people around her would do so as well, considering that the governor today said himself masks should be worn and social distancing of 6 feet should be done. I'm just very concerned about how kindergarten will look for her if we choose to go back, and how this will affect her in terms of our family situation if we choose to go full remote.
Yes. Jessica, we're looking at, in terms of class size for kindergarten, we'd be looking at 7 or 8 students who would be in the room at the time. And we are continuing, in fact, we're meeting this week again with our medical expert, and we will continue to raise these questions, and that's why we appreciate hearing them from you.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question to that. As the president of the paraprofessionals, I worry about the safety in terms of our most vulnerable students and our most vulnerable staff working together. I know that it is very difficult for some of our most vulnerable students to wear a mask or wear PPE, and I respect that, but I also am concerned about staff working closely with the students unable to maintain the social distance. Has there been any thought put into place for that?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of very specific conversation about the kind of intensive PPE that an assistant would need to work directly with a student who was unable to wear a mask. And that's, again, what we're talking to our medical experts about and bringing forward to them. So it's a key question for us as well. And we're going to be very cautious in the way we explore that. So know that we are considering that. It's a very important question, Jess. I'm going to move on to Alyssa. And we'll be up next.
Can I be added too? I also could not raise my hand.
Yes, and we can also see you. We can see your telephone numbers in the chat. I just want to say this. We're coming to about 8 minutes left, and we know that we are not, unfortunately, going to be able to hear from every single person. So we want you to send notes to us. We want you to come on Thursday. We want you to come to the board meeting, and if need be, we'll put additional days in to hear from you because we want to hear from you. Letters, emails are fantastic. Calls and messages are good. We're going to try to find every possible way to get to you, but I can see now that the line is very long. So I know even those of you on the phone, and I can see your number, so I could call you by number, but we aren't going to get to everybody, so I apologize for that. And we'll continue again on Thursday. So you're welcome to stay on the rest of the evening. We're going to ask middle school parents to focus in the next section, in high school in the last, but perhaps there won't be as many, maybe in early. So we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, Alyssa, you're up.
Yes.
Can
you hear me?
Exiting.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my question is about students choosing. We're concerned about sending our elementary student in. We'd like him to try to go to school, but we're concerned that these changes that are necessary are going to be a lot socially and emotionally for a student to take on. And we want to know if this social distancing and all the things that have to happen for safety, if that becomes too much for my student, can I switch over to remote learning?
Yes, we're going to have to be sensitive to the needs of of families and staff. And one of the things that we absolutely want to make sure we do is see what is going on. In the first couple of weeks, we're going to see if we can make this work, and we are going to put every effort to do that. But we want to make sure that people have options. On the other hand, it's going to be hard for people to be coming and going all the time. So we'll have to put something in place so that we have we can do this responsibly. So we understand the issue. We're going to work on addressing that issue, but we understand exactly what you're saying. Thank you. Next in line is Katrina. I'm going to go on to Rob, and we can come back.
Is now exiting.
Rob?
Yes. Hi, thank you. I have two questions. Number one, I'm curious if we go to a hybrid model and we have AB days, are you going to be able to make sure that siblings, say in our case, middle school and elementary school, go to school on the same days?
Yes. We were able to, we have a spreadsheet, it's called the sibling spreadsheet, and we can look at that and we can understand what days siblings need, and we can look at other factors as well, including what we've heard from some parents, which is that they're potting up with friends, or they're working with their faith community, or they're working with others to find spots for their kids to be together when they're not in school. And so we will work as hard as we can to include, if you have somebody that you're potting up with, to try to get you on the same days. As you can imagine, it's a massive spreadsheet, but we're gonna work as hard as possible to get people in the place that's the safest for them, and definitely for siblings.
Yeah.
I'm Rob's wife, Kate. I just had a question about plans for screening tests for kids. I know testing isn't super widely available right now, but if ultimately you'd be trying to just test everybody every few weeks to identify outbreaks before they have a chance to really spread.
Right now, we have no plans to do COVID testing. If a student has symptoms that are COVID-like, then we're going to request that the student go home and see their doctor and take the required tests in the locations that are available to them. But at this point, we are not doing testing in the school. The only screening we'll do is asking the questions, 7 or 8 questions about where you've been, have you been exposed, as well as doing their temperature.
Okay, thank you.
Just a reminder, we've got about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left, and McHugh family is up.
Hi, this is Rebecca. I have 2 kids in the district, and I am a teacher in a nearby district. So I guess my question is both a question and an observation. So one is, what exactly is the plan to ensure that there is not remote assigning going on for children versus actual remote instruction? Because while I can empathize as an educator thrown into chaos this spring, I, with far fewer resources than Concord, managed to provide live instruction to my students. And my children, it was kind of a catch-all. Sometimes they got live instruction from some teachers, and others just were really good at remote assigning. And I know that it was chaos this spring, so I'm not trying to be critical of the district, but is there a concrete plan for live instruction for children? Because that would make a lot of parents much more comfortable with remote learning than remote assigning. So that's my first part of the question.
Yes, and that's an ongoing conversation. I was in a 2-hour conversation today with elementary administrators and teachers on exactly this point. And I know that the middle school and high school are having the very same conversations in terms of the value of having interactive experiences with kids and the opportunity for kids to see their teachers and their classmates. So thank you for that comment. Unfortunately, it is, well, 5:59. Go ahead, get your minute. You can have a minute to get another question.
So that still doesn't answer my question, but I hope it's a conversation you all are having, because it shouldn't really be optional. There should actually be live instruction happening. And secondly,
I'm going to just intercede here. There is an expectation that our staff, our teachers, will be doing face-to-face instruction. We've been working on that, so I don't want to dodge that question. I expect that they will do that because that's what's right in terms of instruction for the kids.
Thank you. And then my other question was just, what's the expectation for kids who do hybrid on the days that they are not in school? Will they have completely different teachers to check in with? I'm not clear on that plan.
Well, don't plug in that.
No, they won't have different teachers, although they may have other teachers connecting with them. For instance, our science program teachers may be connecting with them on certain days that we won't be doing those things in the school. So there's a division. There's a division of what will happen during the day when they're in school and what will happen at home. And so those teachers are working those pieces out as well. And much more information will be forthcoming once we know what direction we're going.
Okay.
And so we reach 6 o'clock, and we want to stay true to our timeline for the middle school folks. So stay on if maybe there's some time to continue, but we are going to take a break and ask the middle school folks to have a chance to ask some questions. The presentation itself will be the same.
This is Crystal Andres. I have an elementary and a middle school kid, so if I can just kind of do the segue.
I think we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to start up again.
Okay. Oh wait.
Okay. Thank you. Crystal, was it Crystal?
Yeah.
Crystal. Okay. Thank you.
So, Donna, this
So Kathleen, if you want to get going.
Set. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm
So,
going to be just a
welcome
minute.
everyone. Welcome everyone for our second session tonight. It's just a little bit after 6, and we want to first of all welcome you. Thank you for participating. We really appreciate it so much. Input from you has been helpful. Your emails, your text messages, however you've sent them, has been really helpful to us. So I can't thank you enough for that, and it really shows how much interest you have in this topic. Joining us tonight, you've had a chance to see our Assistant Superintendent, John Pally. Also participating as a presenter tonight will be our Facilities Director, Matt Cashman. Also listening on the call will be members of our Concord School Board, as well as our building leaders, the principals and assistant principals. But before I begin, I just want to please, we're having trouble with the chat room, so we can't really write questions in there, but we will take questions at the end of our presentation. And so you'll have to raise your hand or let us know that you have a question. We'll try to do our best to answer as many as we can. Just a reminder that during the presentation and question time, if you would mute your mics, that's helpful and we don't get so much feedback. When you do ask your questions at the end, I'd ask you to try to keep it within 2 minutes. We have right now, we're up to 179 participants. On our last section, we were up to almost 300. So we're trying to get in as many as we can. We're going to do this again on Thursday evening, same time schedule, 5 o'clock for elementary, 6 for middle, and 7 o'clock for high school. So please, if you know somebody who didn't get in or was unable to join, Thursday night will also be a good night, and we'll get that chat room feature fixed. I'm not sure why it didn't work for us tonight. So the format for tonight, we'll do a quick overview of the plan, followed by our question and answers, we just want to let you know that the plan, a detailed plan, is on our website under Return to School 2020. And so if you need more information, you can find it there also. So without any further ado, and I'd really like to get started so we can get to your questions, because that's the reason for the forum. So can we put that up, Donna? Can we put up the slides?
Yes, I'm sorry, I thought it was there. Let me try that again. You're not seeing it?
No, I'm seeing all the participants.
Okay. One more try. Hang on. Sorry about that. I think I'm sharing. Can you see it now?
No. Yes, I can. So these guiding principles that are posted in front of you, these are the basic tenets of those things that we really felt that were very important as we developed this plan. I'm not going to read them all, but it's part of the plan, and you can see that on the PowerPoint that's posted on the website. The district conducted 3 surveys back to teachers, families, and students in June, and received a tremendous amount of feedback from families and students and teachers. We also had a second survey that was done in July, which we also received a tremendous amount of feedback, well over 2,500 student family responses. So we were quite pleased about that. So we know what's on your mind, and it's really helped to guide this plan for the district. If I could go to the teaching and learning modules. Keep going, Donna, one more. We have 3 options. No decisions have been made yet, but the 3 options that have been looked at are to fully remote, which is very similar to what we did in the spring, fully in-person, similar to what happened when prior to COVID-19, and then a combination, which we call a hybrid model that we are looking at and studying. The first model, the fully in-person model, that one has been challenging to us because when you take the number of students, you factor in the social distancing of 6 feet and the number of students in a classroom, it doesn't work. You can't do that 6 feet with 22 youngsters in a class plus a teacher plus any other support staff that might be in that room. So that has been a problem in terms of maintaining proper physical distancing. Even with auxiliary rooms in the building like cafeteria, gymnasium, there's still not enough spots for us to be able to spread out. Some people have suggested that we go to off-site and that we look at some available places in the community. We looked at that. We talked about that. One of the problems we have is the staffing of those sites as well as supervising those sites. And we have to consider safety code, both fire protection codes. We also were concerned about nursing. We need to have nurses available to our students as well as various support services. So the off-campus sites didn't appear to be practical for us. We also know that we have a number of students who may be opting for full remote learning. That's what our parents told us, perhaps up to as many as 25%. And if that's the case, and 25% choose the remote learning, we will have the ability to bring the additional students back into the building full time. So in a way that would help us. But it does depend on what's chosen for those models. The full remote model, very similar to what you did in the spring. But we learned a lot. We learned that we needed more structure. Students needed schedules. There needed to be much more face-to-face instruction, live face-to-face instruction. That message was loud and clear to us. And the other piece that was really accentuated by parents across the board was the opportunity for students to interact regularly with their peers. That social piece that happens in school is critical to their development. And so we need to come up with ways in which we can make sure that we have opportunities, even though it's in a remote setting, that they can interact with each other. And we wanted to improve the communication between teachers, students, and families, more communication and more feedback. We also want to be much more attuned to monitoring student attendance and making sure that our students are in school. And the last one was support for at-risk students, those students with IEPs, students that are English language learners, students that are homeless, that we need to provide additional supports for. We need to make sure that we ramp up those efforts. I think we did the full remote model. I'm going to move on to the combination hybrid, which we've been looking at. Combination hybrid.
038481722 is now joining.
The hybrid model allows us to bring in the students and break the classes down to smaller groups. Think about that. You're talking 8 to 10 students, perhaps in a class with a teacher, by doing a hybrid, which means that you have 2 groups. One group attends in person on Monday and Thursday, the second group on Tuesdays and Fridays. We got some feedback on that. Perhaps why didn't we just do Monday, Tuesday for group A and Thursday, Friday for group B? The teachers and the administrators were concerned about the length of time between the group B getting to their lessons on Thursday. And so because everybody wanted to have that interaction with the teacher, we broke it up in that system of Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday. Wednesday was going to be a day where we worked with students in small groups. We had live meetings with students in terms of instruction, online and offline activities and assignments. There might be some special activities from the science team or from integrated arts like art, music, and PE. So we know that Wednesdays we can be used for that. That will also allow our teachers time to be able to connect with our families. The combination, the hybrid model also supports vulnerable at-risk students. They may be able to attend more time in school to receive their specialized instruction. Perhaps that's speech and language, maybe it's OT or PT, but we know that those students need those additional supports, and we would be able to add that time in addition to their regular group A or B day. Parents have asked us, how do we know which group we're in? And we have left that assignment to our building administrators, and they will be in communication with parents to let you know what that, what group they would be in. Matt, you want to talk a little bit about the building?
Sure. On this slide, it just does say that we are requiring students and staff to wear face masks, and that we would provide mask breaks throughout the day. But if we go to the next slide, Donna, we're looking to encourage 8 to 12, with 6-foot distancing, class sizes of 8 to 12 people. We think a good way to do this is assign permanent seats for students so they get used to knowing where they're sitting. Limit the amount of sharing of materials and supplies. We also are going to, through the use of signage and working with the principals, develop pathways through the building, which will minimize the amount of kids being in the hallways at one time. Something that's pretty exciting is we're really encouraging outside classrooms, so we're going to be installing tents at all of our schools to encourage that, to get outside. And we're also going to focus on not holding large group meetings or events. I'll turn it back over to you, Kathleen.
Great. Some people have asked about our calendar. We have talked about perhaps a different start time for the year, but it's really going to be dependent on which model we choose. If we choose a remote learning model exclusively, we will give some extra days for our staff to begin, but we won't need as many. So because they've become accustomed to using it, so it will be dependent. But if we use the hybrid, I suggested that we begin the day after Labor Day, giving our teachers more time to work on their lessons and their planning for either online or in class. So that decision will be made as we get closer to the time when the school board decides the appropriate model for our students. Lots of folks have asked us, you know, how are we making decisions about which model to go to? Do we, you know, what data do you use? What metrics are used? Well, we are using metrics such as the status of COVID-19 in our community in New Hampshire and in Merrimack County. And we're looking and receiving data daily as to what the outbreak or any increase in numbers of COVID-19 diagnoses. So we use that. We have medical guidance. We have a doctor from Concord Hospital who is in charge of infectious diseases, and he's been of a great assistance to us, along with the folks at Department of Public Health, Health and Human Services. They've been a great support to us as we try to decide at what point would we pivot from one to another, should we need to. Donna?
Yes. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Social emotional well-being, I'm going to go quickly through these next couple slides, although that doesn't mean they're not incredibly important. We've put a lot of emphasis on them, and we know we need to be supportive of our staff and of our kids around their social emotional well-being. So the first weeks of school will absolutely, whether it's in person or remote, focus on social emotional well-being. We absolutely be looking at building relationships and community and helping everyone understand the new expectations and of our work this fall. And back to school events, whether they're remote or in person, will be developed, and that will be happening at the building level. That includes, I know we've had a lot of questions about kindergarten screening and orientation, which we put off, but which we anticipate happening in August. Students will certainly be monitored very closely for additional supports and services that we are putting together in our own district and working with our partners in the community to make sure they're available. Student services, we have students who have IEPs, who learn English, who have Title I services and more. And we are working to make sure that these services are available, potentially in person and remotely. We are not going to have a plan to go into individual homes, but we want to work with each family around their students' IEP needs and make sure that we can do as much as we can to meet those needs and our expectations and the parents' expectations for us. We'll be looking at student learning loss over the closure period and looking at our assessments. Certainly, absolutely, we have individuals who will need additional PPE. Plexiglass partitions are being put up around the district in appropriate spaces in the event that we're in and working closely with students who have more physical needs. Our meetings with parents in the future will be remote, not that we couldn't do them, but we just want to limit the number of people that come into our buildings. And the same thing with large group events. We like this, we wouldn't have it in a one's place that we could put 200 or 300 people, and we don't want to do that with students either. We use translation services very often, and certainly counseling and other emotional supports will be available for students in need. We have a lot of technology, and we had already in our district practically one-to-one kindergartners had shared, but we have purchased additional devices, and we have purchased additional devices and new devices for students, not all students, but for some students at certain grade levels that are due for their new technology, and for staff. We have a help desk that worked all spring into the summer, both remotely and in person, and that was available every day of the week, the work week, and that will continue. We are definitely heard from our community that parents want technology training. They want to understand how to use these different Google Meets, Google Classroom, and the other apps that we use. We will also continue to work with our community and our families who are struggling around internet connectivity. We have a number of plans in place for that. In terms of assessment, our students in grades 4 to 8 will be taking a fall screening assessment that the state has asked us to give, 30 minutes in math and 30 minutes in language arts, and the juniors will be taking the SATs in school. We are not aware that the SAT will be available remotely, but will need to be done in person, and so I know we'll know more about that. That's in the hands of the College Board. Moving on, back to you, Kathleen.
Some of you on the call today may have students that use the Regional Technical Center, and just to let you know that we're working with our 9 partner school districts at schools that send their students to the Technical Center. We're planning on opening it every day, and depending on the schedules of those districts, we will be able to provide that. We know that 100% distant remote model is not very effective for a very hands-on program. So there'll be more information about the Tech Center coming forward. Matt, you want to do some screening?
Sure. So some of the procedures we're moving forward with, we're asking parents and guardians to screen the children at home. We will provide a checklist that's verified through the medical guidance that we've been receiving. No-touch thermometers will be available to all families in need, if need be. We do ask that any child that has a fever temperature over 100 to stay at home, and we can engage in remote learning thereafter. Also, if a student is exposed to COVID-19, the student must stay at home and receive guidelines to return. Next slide. This is kind of a two-part thing. Every staff member and student we're asking to screen at home, but we'll also have the ability to screen at the schools. Again, we talked about the use of no-touch thermometers. We understand that to be a fairly quick process to get a temperature reading. And if we find someone that has over 100 degree temperature, we would have them returned home by private vehicle. Next slide. As always, we encourage hand washing and sanitizing.
16038481722
by use of
is now
encouragement to the students and staff, but also do this process when entering the building, whenever they touch somebody else's hands or face after using the bathroom, during lunch and break times, and anytime returning in from the playgrounds. We also will have hand sanitizing pump stations in every single classroom. So cleaning and disinfecting, we have some tools available to us that we've been put in use in a good adequate supply of electrostatic sprayers. It makes for easy and good coverage on all hard surfaces. We will also, with some of the chemicals that I'll talk about here in a minute, we're going to have spray bottles available in all the classrooms with rags. We're going to ask middle and high school students and staff, or encourage them to wipe down after they use their desk before leaving. And we are working with our custodians and our head custodians to look at what model is adopted and how we adjust our cleaning schedule there forward. I talked about the disinfectants that we have that are approved by the CDC. We have the Hyperfect 256. It's a Genasan product. We have Virotabs, but we are also going to be introducing another chemical that is approved by the CDC, which is Contact 256. I will have SDS safety data sheets available for all those products, not just in the schools, but for anyone who wants to view them. Next slide. Visitors and meetings. We're looking at not allowing visitors in the buildings whatsoever unless it's an absolute emergency. We are encouraging parent meetings to be held remotely, and volunteers for this time will not be working in our buildings. The next three slides, and in the interest of time to get to people's questions, we have protocols for a response to COVID-like symptoms at the school. So there's a list there in front of you that we have that. We also have the school response protocol in case of a diagnosis. So if a child, we get a call in that a child has a case of COVID, then we have certain protocol that we'll be following. And then lastly, if we have a confirmed case of COVID in the school, we have certain protocol. I would like to mention that we are working with our medical personnel, our nurses, and others in the field to continually update and change things as things progress. In terms of air handling and filtration, about 3 years ago, we engaged with an outside independent contractor to change all of the air filters in all of our schools. It's a little over 1,000. We have a combination of MERV 8 and MERV 14. Those are very, very good filters, and we're changing them once a quarter. We're also working with Siemens, our building automation system, folks, to maximize airflow from outside air into all of our schools and classrooms. We're working with our HVAC experts from Train Siemens, but I've also reached out to the mechanical engineers of record for all of our HVAC systems, just to get more and more information that we can provide at future meetings or to people that have questions about it. And the guidelines have always said, and we're going to try to maintain when possible, keeping our windows open just to get that free flow of fresh air. With that, I'll hand it back over to Donna for food service.
Just really quickly, we are not seeing large numbers of students in the cafeteria. We would potentially use the cafeteria, but very, very small numbers. Otherwise, we're expecting students to eat outside, and that would be perfect, but the weather is not always so, and so we would use classrooms or other small spaces for small groups of students. It's going to be grab and go for breakfast and lunch, and we are awaiting waivers for details on delivery of food into the community, which we expect to continue to do as we did last spring. And we are waiting for those federal and state waivers.
Great. Transportation, thank all the parents who indicated their willingness to help us with transportation. And the reason for the help is we have 77 passenger buses, and based on the distancing that we can put into play, we could fit 26 students on a bus. So that is going to be a challenge for us, especially if we want a timely arrival at school and a pickup in the afternoon. We will assign one student per seat. It will be an assigned permanent assignment, so we know who's sitting where. However, we do know and recognize that siblings can sit together. Masks will be expected to be used as face coverings on the buses. And when appropriate, if it's raining or it's cold, we can't leave the windows open, but when it's appropriate, we will keep the windows open for good airflow. Buses will be cleaned daily by the drivers and the team at the bus station, and also between runs. We are not going to have field trips out of district for the time being for the students. They could obviously take a walking trip, but out of district field trips will not be held for the time being. Consultation and training, I think we've mentioned that a number of times, so I'm going to skip right through that. We do have a communication plan that's also posted, and again, we're making every effort. We'll repeat this session that we have tonight. We have one more at 7 o'clock. We'll repeat this whole session again on Thursday. There will be time built into the school board meeting on August 3rd, should you wish to share your thoughts with the school board, and we will continue to get the information out to you as it unfolds. Athletics will be ongoing. We've got word from NHIAA that they are moving forward with athletics. And that's both, we'll see athletics both at the high school as well as the middle school, and there will be protocols that are followed there. And again, the next steps, as I mentioned, school board meeting on August 3rd, 7 o'clock. It is a remote session. And then the board will take all of the recommendations under consideration and make a decision as to what's appropriate model for the students for next year. So with that, I'd really like to get to the questions. There's resources, again, those are on the website. Please take advantage of them. There's some great current information available to you. But I really want to get to your questions. And so, Donna, do you want to see if we can start get some folks to...
Yes, we're going to start with Court. Thank you for those people who sent emails. We have those emails. Understand that we have the full list of who's in the room, and we could call on you even if you have a phone. So I will say that we're going to do as best we can for 25 minutes, but thanks to all who sent emails. We will read every one of them, and every one of them will be given to the school board as well to make sure that your voice is heard with your comment. Courtney Levesque, you are up first.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions, and one of them is actually for a family member that's a teacher, and she can't get in because of the capacity. So one of the questions was, what is being done in terms of the accommodations for teachers that have their own children to remote learn, whether it's in district students that they have for their own children, or if they're teaching in one district and their children go to another district? Has that been taken into account?
Courtney, that's a great question, and it has absolutely been taken into account, and we're working with our associations, teachers, our educational assistants, all of our support staff in terms of coming up with a solution to that. We recognize that's a significant issue. Teachers, having students at home, them being in the classroom or trying to do remote learning with their youngsters at home, who they are expected to support. So we recognize that's a issue that we have to deal with.
Right. Okay. So that was her question. So I know from the elementary school presentation, you had said that you weren't going to ask teachers to do remote and in-person learning because that's a lot to juggle, and I agree with that. So would that mean that the teachers would be splitting a class? So if it was a hybrid model, one teacher would do the remote section, and one teacher would do the in-person? Because I bring that up because my daughter's going into kindergarten.
Right.
So they have to adjust to the...
Right. The teacher would, the kids that were in district, the kids that choose to go to school, the teacher would have those students. She would have them on 2 sessions, right? The youngsters that choose to do the remote learning will have a teacher, but it won't be the same teacher as the teacher that's in school because they can't do both. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Some teachers are
so if it was a hybrid model, on the days that they weren't in school in person, they would have the same teacher remotely doing those remote days as well? Or would they have a different teacher doing the remote teaching on the other days?
Well, remember when the group A is off on Tuesday, right? Because Group B is in with the teacher. They will be given assignments. There will be various tasks, projects. They might be working with the science teachers for their activities, or so those activities will all be planned for them on those days. But it won't be with their teacher. Just like they do school now, they have different teachers, right? Like music, art, PE, computer. The librarian is doing a lot of reading, stories, that kind of thing. So those are the kinds of activities that will happen on those days that they're not in with their teacher.
Okay, and then lastly, sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, so students that are coming in, whether it's coming in from another district and hasn't been identified as needing a 504 plan or an IEP, or kindergartners coming in with, food allergies that would need a 504 plan, or IEPs that would need to be done, is that something that the guidance counselors and the social workers in the district are going to be working to get those created prior to the school starting? Or how is that working with ones that don't already have those plans in place that need them?
Well, we hope you'll reach out. If you're coming in from out of district or you're new to our school, we want you to reach out directly to your school principal, and they will assign someone to get going on that. We much prefer to get that information transferred from the other school districts so we can get going here before the school year starts, and they will want to do that. The teams will want to do that.
Okay, so if that communication has already been attempted twice, is there somebody to reach out to directly after that, or?
Yes, absolutely. Reach out to us at the central office and we'll help you make that connection with the building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin Reckwarth?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. First off, thank you for doing this. This has been loads of help. I am a TA at one of the elementary schools, but I also have a son who is a 7th grader this year. I have a question about, probably you don't know about special ed really, but if I have to work the 4 days, because I am a TA working one-on-one with a kiddo, and my son only goes to school 2 days a week, is there something in the books about special ed kids going all 4 days, or are they still recommending only going 2 days a week?
We have, in our presentation, we talked about youngsters that had additional needs, and we know that youngsters with IEPs or English language learners, that we needed to be able to provide them with more time and more support. So the answer to your question is, depending on the need, depending on their IEPs and the goals, then yes, we would provide more time for them in addition to the 2 days.
Is that also for middle school kiddos too?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Telephone number ending with 3106. If you want to speak, this would be a time. Okay, I'm gonna go on, and if you can join us at some point. Let me go back up top. Amy Whitney.
Participant is now exiting.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Before I even ask it, I recognize that I've heard things on the street, so this may be totally untrue, and I'm hoping that you guys can, give me some comfort and tell us a little bit more in regards to Runlit. Kind of what is the air filtration system? Do all of the windows open? I'm hearing that they do not all open, and that there is actually not a filtration air system in Runlit. Thank you.
I'll be happy to take that. We do have an air filtration system. We have, I believe it's 14 air handlers, rooftop units that serve that entire building. It was updated in 2010, and then it was updated again recently when we converted from steam to gas. I don't know if you heard earlier in the presentation, but about 3 years ago, we engaged Train Air Systems. It's a worldwide company, and they do all of our air handling system filtration filters at every one of our schools, including Runlit. As far as the condition of the windows, Runlet is a very old school, and I won't go into, talking about, future plans of what we'd like to do with that at this forum. But I will meet with the head custodian and principal tomorrow, and we'll evaluate all 80 classrooms. And if there's a window that's not working, we'll do everything we can to get it to work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Sarah Pratt.
Hi, can you hear me?
It's just a little, it's a little
Okay,
quiet.
a little closer to my machine. The question I have is about, and I'm not sure if you really covered this, but if it becomes known that someone is positive for COVID-19 in the building, is that something that's going to be communicated broadly to the community? I mean, I understand about privacy and health and everything else, but I sort of feel like I would not want to be sending my kid to school unknowingly that he could have been exposed to COVID-19 in the classroom by a teacher or another student or whatever. That's a big worry that I have. So I didn't hear whether that got covered.
Well, we are working very closely, obviously, with the public health. So if we have a diagnosis of a COVID-19, we will absolutely reach out to them. We need to make sure that they're aware. They have traces that people that will come in and trace all contacts, so we'll know who was exposed. But you can be assured that, and I have to be careful because, there's HIPAA and FERPA rules, that I have to be careful. We have to all be careful about what we say, but I feel very strongly that we need to communicate that to families so that they understand and they can make decisions based on what they feel is in the best interest of their students.
Can I just ask another quick question, which is, if families just are not comfortable with any in-person, even if you choose, say, a hybrid model where there's some in-person and some remote, what if a family really is not comfortable with any in-person? I would think you'd welcome the opportunity for fewer students to be in the building, but I don't know. I don't want my children to be penalized if I just end up feeling
we would never
sending my kids to school in person at all.
Right, we would never do that, but that option is available. If a family decides that the best option is remote, then we honor that option. And we know that approximately 20 to 25% of our parents are leaning towards a remote learning environment. But right now what we're doing is determining how many teachers we need to do that and to be able to have a teacher for the remote as well as the teacher for the children that attend school, that come into school.
Yeah, would the remote at all include any live instruction? Because my kids were both in Runlet in the spring, and neither one of them had one bit of live instruction, which bothered me. My kids are very smart, and they can do their assignments virtually 100% independently. But it troubled me that they did not have any live learning from their teachers.
Right. Well, thanks for that. We recognized that early on. That was a lot of feedback that we got from families. That happened in a lot of places, that there wasn't enough live instruction, face-to-face, student and the teacher. And so that's been one of the goals of our improving our remote learning model.
So that you may have that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kim or Sean Cook?
Hi, how are you tonight? Thank you for taking my questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine, thank you.
Awesome. Is it going to be considered the amount of parents who want to keep their kids strictly remote versus parents who are comfortable enough sending their kids to school? Will those numbers, so if there is such a high amount of kids staying home, that kids who want to go to school full time can go throughout the week?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if a large proportion of our children stayed home, would it be possible that everyone who wanted to go could go? Right now, I can see what you're saying. Numbers right now aren't possibly supporting that, but I suppose on a theoretical basis, if lots and lots of people stayed home, then we could keep it. The most important thing for us is the distancing, the masking, and the small numbers in any space. And so we would want to stay true to that. But theoretically, I suppose if that happened, then you would be in that position. But
And
we don't.
could that go by a school-to-school basis, or does the district have to kind of follow all the same models?
I would think we want to be consistent in our school, but it's an important comment that you've made, and I think we should consider what you're saying.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Stacy Duffy.
So I was just wondering, I know you guys have talked about this a little bit, but if we do the hybrid, which I'm assuming it's probably leaning that way, and you're saying that the kids are going to go to school 2 days, and then the other 3 days they're going to have assignments on their own. And then if you're doing some that are virtual and having those teachers, are they going to have the kids that are virtual, are they going to meet with their teachers every day versus the kids that are hybrid only meeting with their teachers 2 days? I feel like the kids are going to fall way behind if we're only meeting with our teachers 2 days a week and the other 3 days they're doing homework.
I just want to point out that the Wednesday would be a remote day, so for their teacher and their class. So it would be 3 that you would see connections between your teacher, your classroom teacher, and your students. And the other 2 is the question, the approach to work on sending things home and providing supportive other ways to interact, because we really don't feel we can ask our teachers to be doing 2 things at one time. That said, there may be small ways that theoretically teachers on a Tuesday could include small numbers of students in the class with the kids who are there, but those are things that we're having conversations about. But you are correct, it's a different model between the hybrid and the remote for sure.
And then one just last comment, and I'm just throwing it out there, and I don't want it to, either way it's going to sound rude, but you guys always consider the teachers that are teachers that have kids, and then you consider the kids that are maybe a little bit more challenged. But what about the kids that are just normal kids that need the schooling, and parents that are full-time workers that are essential but not teachers? Like, I feel like Concord just kind of lacked in that area about taking everyone into consideration. And I just hope going forward that you guys are going to take that into consideration, because of the last end of the school year, the kids really just did review work and didn't learn anything.
Thank you for that comment. Again, we're looking to improve the way we deliver our services to the youngsters, and we're committed to making those improvements. So I do appreciate your comment.
Joe? I'm going to go on to Jess Thompson, and we can come back to Joe if he's or she is available.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, I have a child with an IEP, and in his supports, he gets speech therapy twice a month with a group therapy. We have chosen to stay home and do remote learning. So how will he be able to participate in group speech therapy, either from home or coming to school during those 2 time periods to participate?
Great question.
That's a great question, and it's the question that the special ed teams are working on right now. They're looking at both options. How do you do that remotely? How do you join a small group? It's possible to do a small group remotely. We have teachers who did do that all through the spring. So that's certainly something that's very possible to do. And in person, we would just have to make sure that we're maintaining some reasonable distances, and we're really looking at 6 feet of distances for our groups.
Yeah, we tried to participate at the beginning when we went to remote learning, and it just did not work out. He was basically only paired with one other student, and it didn't really challenge him in the terms of learning social skills. So that was the reason why I asked the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's an important question. I'm glad you brought it up, and we'll make sure that folks hear that comment.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Steve Winnett?
Thanks, and thank you for having this session. I wonder how it's going to work with the teachers who are teaching in the classroom in the hybrid model where you have some kids learning at home at the same time some kids are learning in school, and there are going to be different teachers for each. And I'm wondering, are all teachers going to be in the classroom at some point, or are there some teachers that won't have to be in the classroom? And will the kids be having the opportunity to learn from all the teachers that are in the school, or are some not going to be coming in, or what's going to happen with that?
Those are really good questions, Steve. We anticipate that there will be some teachers who will teach remotely, and they will just teach remotely. They will be home, and they will be teaching children who are also learning remotely, who have chosen to learn remotely. That's the basis of this kind of foundation for this idea. And that the children who are going in to take their class, say at the high school level, if you had a high schooler, for instance, or a middle schooler, they would be connecting with a teacher who will be their teacher of record. They won't have that remote teacher as their teacher. That teacher will just have a different class. That is a remote class, if that makes sense. It's almost like a little Concord remote academy, that's self-contained within that unit. That's the intention of it. I don't know if that helps to clarify that difference, because I know it is complicated.
Yeah, thanks. And what's the selection? Is there a selection criteria for who gets to work at home solely and who comes in, or?
No, that's really going to be a parent choice. We're not selecting students for any particular model.
I'm sorry, I didn't make myself clear. Is there going to be a selection criteria for what teachers don't get to come in at all, and what teachers do come in? I'm just wondering, whose experience are we going to miss out on if our kids are the ones that come in?
Yeah, and that's a difficult area, but we already know that there are some teachers that are not able to be in given immune deficiencies or medical issues. So we've already identified those staff members. They're sharing that information with us. There are some teachers that did a fabulous job with remote learning, and so they may choose to continue with that, which would be great. And then we have teachers who are willing to come, who feel comfortable coming back in and working with their students. So we're trying to match up all of that. Once we determine the model, then we will try to match up teacher to whatever model is chosen.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Deb Fitzenmeyer?
Yes, hey, I'm going to show my face. First of all, Matt and Kathleen and Donna, thank you for all the work that you've done on this. Huge amount of work. I'm going to disagree with a parent who spoke earlier about the lack of instruction at the middle school. I have 2 kids in the middle school, and I feel like my kids' cluster's home run. I mean, those teachers were really in contact with the kids all the time, and they did really, really well. So I think that speaks to the fact that maybe we need a little more universal training for teachers so that all the kids can have that same experience. I feel like our teachers did a really, really good job in that crisis situation and now into a remote situation. I wonder about an abbreviated day for the kids. I know a lot of other districts are talking about doing that to limit the contact, and specific to the middle school. I know that you guys are looking at the really big view of the district, but drill it down to the middle school. And we have some things in our day like advisory groups and WIN groups, that's an intervention period, the exploratories, then all the academics. So how are we going to address that so we don't have kids just shifting and moving and moving about throughout the day? I have an 8th grader, and again, I'm a teacher at Rundlet, but I have an 8th grader So his academics don't actually start until about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So why would I want my kid to go to school unless we try to modify that schedule a little bit? Especially because he doesn't require special ed services or any special instruction or reading or math. So are we going to try to address that at the middle school level?
I think I can partly answer that question, and thanks for that feedback. I think that the principal and her team are working on a schedule that fits the youngsters. You know, if they're not in till 10 o'clock, what did they not have between 8 and 10? You know, did they miss maybe they missed the computer class, or they missed some of the classes like that. We still want them to be exposed to some of that, especially at middle school, where that exploratory is so important. I also think that the enrichment and the WIN programs and the things that they do with the kids are really critical, especially, again, for middle school youngsters and developmentally. So the teachers are working on a schedule, trying to focus on, obviously, the basics, because we don't want to lose sight of our core subjects, because that's important, but not lose sight of those other activities for the youngsters. Because as you know, some of those young activities that they participate in school are what brings them to school every day. And to not have those, and to not have those for kids, I think would be a disservice to them. The key will be, how do you make sure that the kids at home on remote get those same activities? Wednesday is a great day for that, and for their advisories. So I think I know that Paulette is working hard on that, and with her team, and emailing us with ideas, and so I'm hoping that we have a robust program for them.
Thank you, Kathleen. I agree with you. I think that Wednesday might be a really great day to put in all of the advisory lessons, the social emotional, all the intervention stuff, and maybe elongate the actual class time throughout the week so that teachers have more academic contact.
Right.
Thank you all. Great work.
Thank you.
We just have a couple minutes left. Meg, you're up next, and I was really remiss to not say, let's try to keep to a couple minutes and maybe one question per person, just to be fair to others. But Meg, you're up.
Great, thank you, and thank you all for the work you're doing on this. I don't think there's any clear-cut, easy solution for all. So once the decision is made on the go-forward plan, hopefully at the August 3rd school board meeting, at what point do parents need to make a choice as to whether they're going to proceed with the recommended model or a remote-only learning option? And by what date do they need to make that decision? And at any point during the school year, as circumstances change and maybe their students' needs change, can that choice be modified during the year?
So great questions. We hope you'll make those choices pretty quick, because you have to think about the work that we have to do to tie the kids who are remote with their teacher and figure out who that is and assign that teacher, as well as in the classroom and who's returning to the classroom, and making sure that we have our staff ready for that. So we hope that the families will make those decisions as soon as possible. After the board does makes their decision, I will get a letter out to parents with some ideas about what's available to them and the selection process. Because we need time. I mean, we need time to figure out who's coming in on the school buses. We need time to figure out how many lunches we need to do, how many people need lunches from home. So that isn't going to happen in just a couple of days. So we're hoping parents will do that pretty quickly. I also think that parents, should situations occur, I would be in contact with the building principal and the teacher should, let's say, remote learning is not going well, and there's an opportunity to come into school under the hybrid, then I would strongly urge parents to take advantage of that.
I want to thank people in this group for the time. I'm sorry that we couldn't hear from everyone, and I'm sorry about the chat function being a problem. We're going to work on that for Thursday. We are doing this again on Thursday, same time. We are doing with a board meeting on the 3rd, and I know the board members would be wanting to hear from you. We have an email address, concordinfo@sau8.org. We really welcome your letters. We've had lots and lots of them, and we appreciate them, and they'll go to the school board as well. So concordinfo@sau8.org is a good place to send a note if you haven't been able to speak to us today.
Hi, my name is Jenny, and I just have a quick question. I'm going to be participating in the Concord High School meeting, and if the chat feature isn't working, how should someone get your attention so you can call on them with questions?
Raise your hand if you have that hand function. So it's a little literally an outline of a hand in the middle of the roughly in the middle of the little bar that comes up when you put your cursor on your screen.
Okay. I don't have that option for some reason.
Okay.
I don't have a cursor. I'm on an iPad. That's probably why.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The same for computer too. Just saying.
Okay. All right. So send a note to concordinfo@sau8.org and give your name and say I'm in line, and we'll call on you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
much. Thank you.
Yes.
I had to leave and come back in order to get the hand to raise for my question. Just
Yeah.
FYI.
Oh, great. That's
so
great.
It did come up. Did your chat come up as well?
No, the chat didn't come up. The hand to raise.
hand
the
did.
question
Okay.
did.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Thanks for that. We're going to take just a few minutes of a break, and then we're going to start up again. I think, is it 7:10, Matt? Is that the right time?
We can, if
7,
we're good to go,
17.
let's, as soon as we can.
Excuse me, Donna, this is Lyndon. Can
Yes.
you see the chat? You or Kathleen, can you see the chat? Because
Yes, we see it as normal, but apparently folks out in the audience don't see it as normal. So we didn't realize it was wrong because we can see it.
right. So what I'm going to suggest is when I get an email to concordinfo@sau8.org saying I'm in line, I will put that person's name in the chat for you. Will that work?
That is a perfect solution. Thank you, Lyndon.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks for all your work, everybody. Doing great. It's a team for sure. It takes a village. Thanks, Deb.
Donna and Kathleen, you are rock stars for holding out for 2 hours straight. I know that these questions are hard. I know that some parents are frustrated. I know that some teachers are frustrated, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I am one of those parents who is very frustrated. I know. Thank you, Jess. But I also just want to let you know that I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yes, definitely, Jess. Thank you.
Jess, this is Kathleen. Jess?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, listen, the frustrations goes everywhere, right? Because we want the kids to come back, right? And we want things to return to teachers teaching kids, right? And gosh, it's so difficult because like I said earlier, it changes every day. The circumstances change, so it's hard. But thank you. Yeah, thanks.
I sense the frustration, and I'm sure you can also. And please know that it's not because, I can't vent my outlet elsewhere. Trust me, I have 3 other people who live in this household with me that hear it every day.
We feel the same way.
Appreciate that you are open to it all. So.
Absolutely. It's so important. We're all in this together. We're going to, this.
Oh, there you go. We lost your sound, Donna.
Somebody muted me. Okay. It was a message. No, I know it takes a village, right? This is a perfect example of we got to be working together on this all together. And people have been wonderful. We've gotten just so many notes from people with such good ideas and such good feedback, and we've we've used many of them, and I know lots of folks are worried and concerned.
Well, I thank you. Yep. You think we can start 7:05?
I think so. I know that people are still coming in, but I think we could get going with this. So
Yeah,
I'll put that. I'll go ahead and put it up. Go ahead, and I'll get.
While Donna's putting up the slides, I'm going to just welcome everyone tonight. Thank you for participating. I can't say enough about the feedback, all of the emails that we've received to give us some direction and ideas. You're letting us know how you feel about everything, and we really appreciate that. And kudos to all of you. And I know it's been hard. We recognize that. I certainly do, and it's been hard on families. So appreciate all you've done. I want to thank Donna Pally, our assistant superintendent, and our facilities director, Matt Cashman. They're helping to present tonight and have done incredible work. And there's been a lot of work done by a lot of people, our teachers, our principals, parents, outside consultants, people in the community. So, this work was done in a collaborative fashion, and I'm pretty happy about that. Also tonight, listening in on this, and they've listened in on all three of the sessions. They're pretty quiet out there, but our school board is there listening to your feedback. They will do that tonight, and they will also do that again on Thursday, so I appreciate that. As well as our building leaders, our principals and our assistant principals and folks in charge are in on this tonight. Before we begin, please send your questions to the SAU site. I'm looking to make sure I know the right
Concord info at SAU8.org.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. And we will call on you for questions. We can take those. Donna will see your hand raised, and we can take questions. I'm going to ask, though, that we ask that you keep your questions and your comments to around 2 minutes so that we can hear from everyone. We have, right now, it looks like about 177 people are on this call. We've had as high as getting close to 300 on our earlier call at 5 o'clock. So we want to be able to hear from everyone. If we don't hear from you tonight, don't give up on us. Send us an email or join us on Thursday. That would be awesome. So the format for tonight, we'll have a brief presentation that Donna and Matt and I will do. That will be followed by a question and answers from you. That, to me, is the real important part of the forum tonight. We've broken these sections into 3 sections: elementary, middle, and this hour is for our high school families. There may be some folks still on from other groups, but that's okay too. I just want to remind you that the plan and more detail than what you'll see from the 3 of us tonight is available on the Concord website, school district website, under Return to School 2020, and so you'll see that. So with that, I'll begin. If Donna, you could put up the slides, that would be awesome. And just reminding everybody, if you could mute your microphone.
Kathleen, excuse me, it's Lyndon. I'm going to mute everyone, and then the speakers, if you would just mute yourselves.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just waiting for the slides.
All right, sorry, hold on. Slides are coming. It seems to think I've already included them, but let me try again. Can you see them now?
No, not yet.
No.
You're not seeing the slides. Okay.
No, I think it's your screen.
All right, hold on. I'll try again. We haven't had this problem yet tonight, but
are you clicking the share button on your team screen? Okay.
Yep, and it's showing that I'm sharing, but let me just keep trying again. But now?
Yes, there it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Yep.
patience. Okay, there you go.
I closed that so people can't see us.
Kathleen, are you there?
Good. Well, okay, I'm good. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I said these are the guiding principles. These are the basic objectives and goals that drove the plan. In June, surveys were done with a great response from families, students, and staff, helping that feedback helped also to inform the planning that you're seeing tonight. In addition to the one in June, we also did another one in July, and we had a great response of over 2,500 students represented in that survey relative to coming back to school. The three models that we've looked at, the district has looked at, are fully remote, fully in-person, and a combination, which we call the hybrid model. The first, I'm just going to ask you to mute your microphones if you can. That would be helpful. So the fully in-person.
Somebody muted you all. Nobody can hear you.
Yeah. I don't know who's. I know, but I've done it.
We have the option to mute everybody but ourselves, and somebody keeps hitting that mute button. So everybody needs to leave that button alone and let the people running the show do that.
Thank you. I don't know why I keep getting muted. I just thought people were tired of hearing from me, so that's what. No, go ahead. We'll go on. Little humor. This is my last session tonight. Come on. So I'm going to go to fully in-person model. Donna's going to throw that slide up in a minute, but we looked at that model. All the kids come back. The problem with that is we have to adhere to the rules around social distancing, which means that given our class sizes, average 18, 20, 22, 23 students, we can't get that many kids and socially distance. So we do not have in the district the appropriate space accommodations for the kids. We can use other areas in the school, but we don't have enough. We can use the gym and the cafeteria in some large spaces, but it isn't enough to accommodate everyone. So that was a problem for us. Some people suggested that we look at off-campus sites, and we did. However, the concerns that we had were around staffing those sites, supervising those sites. We also concerned about safety issues like fire protection, and also we knew that we needed nursing services and support services at those sites. So it was not very practical for us to do that. But we knew, too, that we had a number of students indicating to us that they would be interested in remote learning. At least that's what the families shared with us. About 25% indicated that they were leaning towards remote learning. With that in mind, if you had 25% of a class, say of 20, now you're down to 16, we might be able to do some splitting up of the classes to create small class sizes. So if I go to the next slide, the fully remote model used in the spring, but honestly, the district learned so much from that. Remember, they had to spin pretty quickly into that model when the governor announced that the schools were closing and they had to go to a remote learning. They had to pivot into that pretty quickly. So we learned that we needed more structure, more scheduling for the youngsters. We needed more FaceTime. Kids needed to be seeing a teacher. They needed live instruction. That was critically important to our students as well as to the families. We also recognized that our students needed more time to interact regularly with their peers. So if we go to remote model, we need to make sure that there is occasion time built into the week where they interact with their fellow classmates. We wanted to improve and increase the communication between teachers, students, and families so that they were receiving ongoing feedback. We also wanted to closely watch student attendance. And also we needed to ratchet up the support that we have for kids that are at risk and that those that did not engage in the remote learning. The third model that we've looked at is the hybrid model. This is an opportunity for us to take the youngsters, split them in smaller groups, and assign them days, which would be done by the principals. But we had two groups, A group and a B group. And the A group would attend on Mondays and Thursdays, and the B group on Tuesdays and Fridays. One of the concerns people had was consistency. Why wouldn't you consistently deliver Monday and Tuesday and then do the next group on Thursday and Friday? The concern that the principals and the teachers had was the time lost for that second group.
+16034913421 is now joining.
That would be until Thursday before they were getting their instruction. The time between that group didn't seem appropriate, so that's why they went to the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday schedule. Wednesday would be a day when all students participate in remote activities, including live meetings, their advisories, in small group instruction, and on and offline assignments that their teachers would provide for them. We also know that the hybrid would allow us to bring in our vulnerable students, perhaps in addition to their regular Group A or Group B days, so that they would have additional time to receive the specialized instruction, perhaps small group instruction, speech and language, occupational therapy, those kinds of supports. Again, people asked, how do we know which group we're going into? The principals. We're going to take care of that and notify the families. Let's see, I lost my place here. Did you jump ahead? No, I guess I'm good. Combination of the hybrid model. We are requiring students to wear masks while they're in the building. Now, we recognize for the younger students that can be challenging, and we've looked at alternative accommodations for them. We also know that we would have to have breaks during the day so that they had time to take the mask off, be outside. I think you'll hear later on from Matt Cashman that we have tents and things that we want a lot of outdoor activity for the youngsters. And again, for the young students, this may not be so much for the high school, but asking parents to help us with that and cooperate with the use of the mask. With that, Matt's going to talk a little bit about the school and the hybrid relative to what that might look like in our facilities.
Thanks, Kathleen. We're looking at a typical class size of anywhere between 8 and 12 students. We are looking to maintain, as discussed earlier, the 6-foot distancing. We also want to assign seats to students so that it's a matter of habit. They know what desk and seat that they're going to. We're going to limit the amount of sharing and supplies within the classroom. We're going to work with principals and develop pathways and routes through hallways to keep mixing of groups as low as possible. And as Kathleen just mentioned, we have tents coming as early as next week and through the month of August at all of our schools to really encourage outside learning. We also want to note that large group meetings and events are going to not be held, at least for the beginning part of this. Kathleen?
And there's been a lot of talk about modified school schedule. That school calendar for next year, for the beginning of this current year, 2021, will really be dependent on which model is selected. If we choose the remote model, we won't need as many prep days for our teachers. Many of you know the governor has indicated that the teachers should be given 3 more days for prep. But that's if we're trying to do a hybrid and going back. So, but if we do a remote, we may not need that many days. So it depends on the model as to what the first day of school will be. for our students. Many people asked us what will cause you to pivot from one model to another. Why do you choose one model? Well, we used the status of COVID-19 in our communities, and most of you know New Hampshire's in the yellow. We have a low cases, but we watch that all the time. We get the daily news on that. We also have sought medical advice from. We have a doctor from the Concord Hospital that is oversees infectious diseases, so he's been a terrific help to us. In addition to state and federal guidance, we use that and guidance from the Health and Human Services and Office of Public Health to help guide us in making those decisions, and they've been very helpful. So. Donna, you want to jump into social emotional learning, well-being? Donna, are you on mute?
Donna, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was muted while I was behind the screen here. I'm going to go back to presenting. Can you see the screen still?
Yes.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to just very briefly say that social emotional learning is of key importance to us, whether our children are at home or in school. We know this has been difficult for them. It's been difficult for teachers and families as well. We're certainly going to be focusing on the work that we need to do around building relationships and classroom community, and those are difficult things to do, especially when you don't know your students, unlike March when our teachers did, and when they have to think about, all our staff have to think about how they put together protocols for good engagement with their students and learning about them. Back to school events will be developed at the schools, remote or in person. That includes kindergarten screenings. I know we've had conversations about that and orientations, and those will be in the process of being developed by various levels. And again, we'll be monitoring our students very, very closely for their need for individual supports that we can provide both in our district and with our partners. And we've been in close touch with partners in the community as well. Student services is a key issue for many folks. We offer many students with IEPs who are English language learners who receive Title I services, small group and individual supports, and we intend to continue to do that. Whether it's, we're hoping that our students can opt for remote services as part of our plan, as well as in homes, remote services, but we are not at this point planning to offer in-home services. We are looking at the needs of our staff who work with students and the needs of our students who work with staff who have physical needs, and therefore that staff would have the necessary protection to work with those students. Matt and his team are working on installing plexiglass partitions where it's appropriate. Meetings with parents will be held remotely. It's not that we couldn't do it in person, but we want to keep the number of people in our buildings, if we're back, to a very small number. We obviously working and continue to work very closely with translation services and counseling and other emotional supports as well. In technology, we've been in a good place when we started in the spring because we do have a lot of devices. We're mostly one-to-one. We are in the process of purchasing new devices, some of which are part of a timetable of replacement. So the high school students are on a timetable of having their technology replaced sometime in the fall. And we are also purchasing additional technology for our staff members. Our help desk, which was open both remotely and in person for the entire spring and into the summer, will continue in the fall. We know we've heard from families that they really would like some more technology training. They want to know about Google Classroom and about Google Meets and about the different apps that we're using with students. So we're planning to offer that. And we're still working with our community around internet connectivity. We know that we have relationships with the providers and will help to support families with that. And just a quick message that the state is expecting our students to do some assessments in the fall, the 4th to 8th grade and the SAT. At this point, the SAT is a paper and pencil. It's not something we're doing remotely, so we'll have to have more information about that as we go forward from the College Board.
And with regards for all our high school students around the Regional Technical Center, we're working with 9 schools, the 9 school districts that send kids to us to develop a plan. Planning to keep the technical center open every day because of the different schedules from all of the sending schools. So, and they also looking at a potential for a little bit longer lab day where they're engaged in projects. The transportation is a challenge everywhere, and that doesn't change with the technical center. One thing we know is that the distance modeling, the remote learning model, is a struggle for almost every program at the technical center because they are so hands-on and project-orientated. But we anticipate that that it will be open. Matt, you want to start in on screening?
Will do. We're talking about some screening procedures at home. We're really encouraging and asking parents and guardians to screen their children at home for risk factors and take their temperature. We as a district will provide a checklist that's backed by medical consultants that we have on the project. We're working on thermometers will be available to families in need. We ask that if during the screening process at home, if any student has a temperature of over 100 degrees, that they stay home, and then we will work with them on remote learning. And if a student is
+16037486617 is now joining.
Next slide, please. Every staff member and student will be screened before entering the building. We do have a decent amount of no-touch thermometers. We'll be ordering some more, but same thing exists. If you have above 100-degree temperature, and this happens at school, you must return home. With students, we're going to reach out and have them return home by private vehicle. As always, and since the beginning, we've encouraged hand washing and sanitizing. Whenever we enter the building, touch somebody else's hands or face, using the bathroom, snack or break times, or returning from the playground. We will be installing hand sanitizing pump stations in every single classroom in the district, so we'll have that opportunity to hand sanitize as well. Our cleaning and disinfecting protocol, we've added electrostatic sprayers to all of our schools. We have a decent amount and some backup of this equipment in all of our schools. We also will outfit every classroom with spray bottles with the disinfectant and rags. Middle and high school students and staff will be encouraged to wipe down their desk before leaving their classroom. And like I said, hand sanitizer stations will be mounted on the walls of every classroom, and we're working with our custodians to adjust the schedules based on the model selected. We talked a little bit about the disinfectant, and these are the 2 disinfectants that are approved by CDC, the Hyperfect 256 and the ViroTaps. They're both Genasan products. We also have a new product that is equally as effective, approved by the CDC, that we will be using, and it's called Contact 256. I'll have SDS sheets available on all of this product, and we can make it available on our website as well. As far as visitors and meetings, we're going to restrict visitors to coming into the buildings unless it's an emergency situation. As mentioned earlier, parent meetings will be held remotely, and at least at the start of this, volunteers will not be working in our buildings. The next 3 slides, we have some developed protocols, but I'll keep people reminded that we are working with medical consultants, and from time to time, as these changes take effect, we will review them with staff and students and families. These slides are a response to symptoms of COVID. If we have a diagnosis of COVID in the school, or if there's a diagnosis of COVID and we're alerted out of school. In terms of air handling and filtration, every single quarter for the last 3 years, we've had an outside company, AirTrain Systems, replace every quarter over 1,000 filters in our district. We utilize one of two filters, either MERV 13 for incoming air or recirculation air. We use MERV 14. We will also be working with Siemens for our business building automation system, to increase the airflow in all of our schools and classrooms. We've also reached out to train Siemens and the mechanical engineers of record for the design for the air systems in our schools to get more information. And as always, we encourage windows to be opened when possible and if needed.
I'm going to talk about the food service just briefly. We will not be using our cafeterias to their max. We won't be filling them anywhere near that. There may be some small groups of students there, but we're going to be looking for other places to eat outside or in classrooms or other available spaces. Breakfast and lunch will be grab and go. We expect to, we hope and expect to continue to have food that can go out into the community, whether it's pickup or delivery. We are awaiting waivers from the federal and state governments on our ability to do that, but we certainly will be hoping to do that in the fall.
And so in transportation, we appreciate everyone who will help us in providing transportation for the students to school. That includes parents. We also know at the high school, of course, that a number of the students drive, and that will be a help because we have 77 passenger buses, and you can only put 26 on the bus, given the social distancing that we want and the way we set it up. Youngsters will be assigned seats. They will be permanent. We do allow siblings to sit together. That question has come up. But we are expecting that masks be worn on the bus. Windows will be open when the weather allows for it. And so we're continuing to deal with that issue. Sanitizing the buses happen after each of the runs from middle to high school to elementary. They'll be sanitized as well as at the before the day starts and at the end of the day. So no field trips. We're asking that the students not leave the district that requires busing and leave to go a field trip outside of the community. But certainly if there's a walking field trip, that's acceptable. We've mentioned this a number of times, but we are using these folks to help us in consultation and with training, and we are very appreciative of their support and service. A communication plan is the next one up, I think, and we will continue to get information out. One question that's been asked a lot is, how will we communicate with parents if there should be an outbreak? There will be information coming from my office, the superintendent's office, based on direction and guidance from our doctor that we are in consult with, as well as the Department of Public Health. We rely on those folks. So we'll continue to make sure that the information and messages are out there for you to see. Just want to mention, we're going to do this again on Thursday night. So if you know somebody who couldn't get in for some reason tonight, we did have some high numbers. We will do this again on Thursday, same schedule, 5 o'clock for elementary, 6 for middle, and 7 for high school. There'll also be an opportunity to present any of your thoughts to the school board on August 3rd. Athletics at the high school is a go, and HIAA has recommended that we continue with the athletic program at the high school, so you'll see that. But they will have protocols. There will be daily screenings, and coaches are expected to wear masks and where appropriate, when the kids are practicing or they're doing their drills, that they adhere to social distancing. And so we're moving forward with athletics, both at the high school as well as at the middle school. So the last, we talked about next steps, and that's the board meeting on August 3rd. And the final slide is just some resources for you to use should you need additional information. It's resources that we use. So with that said, that gives us some good 25 minutes here to do some question and answers. So I think that, Donna, I think we have some names in the chat, and you might have some people who have their hands raised. So I'm going to let you do that.
Yeah, so here's how it's going to work. I just want to explain the way it's working because we're having trouble with the chat tonight. If you have a question, we want to ask it, then write your name in an email and send it to concordinfo@sau8.org. concordinfo@sau8.org, and that name will be provided to us so that we can call on you. The other thing, if you have a hand to raise, you can certainly raise it. Some people have had that hand, some people don't if they're on a phone. Also know that you can send an email to that same address, concordinfo@sau8.org. We've gotten lots of notes and we want them all. We read them and they're going to the school board as well. So please do that. Jennifer Bell, you're up.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. My question is about the alternative high school and whether these modules are also going to be affecting them as well.
At Second Start, do you mean?
Correct.
Yes, I was just speaking to them a couple days ago, and they are moving ahead with plans. They're very, very small, and so they, as a separate entity, may end up working full-time there. Of course, many students are just there part days, so hold on and for information from Second Start directly, but they are working on that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sarah, let's see, I think Sarah Pratt, if you're still here, I think you asked your question last time. And I also want to say, please, you probably have more than one question. Please, for the sake of others, pick your most important one and ask that, send us the others, and let's try to stick to 2 minutes. Cheryl, you're up.
Okay, hi. Please excuse me if this isn't making any sense because we just moved to Concord during the pandemic, so we're all new here. But my question is about orchestra, jazz club, or whatever it's called, I'm not sure, and theater.
Yes, folks are exploring the questions about instrument playing. We know we're not going to be singing together, but folks are exploring the instrument situation, and you mentioned the jazz as well. There's advice coming out about medical advice about whether or not we can do that. So I know there'll be more information coming out about that. And we have some concerns, but we need to see how that might work, Cheryl. That's a great question.
And then theater. Did you already answer that one about theater?
Theater, I think specific information will be coming out about the theater. And again, to the extent that we can follow our rules about 6-foot distancing and masks for practicing, the question will become, what happens to productions? And we have not have a final answer on the productions yet, but I suspect Mr. Close is working on that even as we speak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. C. Green.
Yes, hi. I just had a general question about sports. Thank you for hosting this, but I have students in both the middle school and the high school. And if we're looking to have students in classrooms in sizes 8 to 12 and buses dropping from 77 to 26, how can they participate in sports safely, like football and cheer and basketball in the district? Like, what's the plan for that? How are they going to get to games? Are there going to be different guidelines for the teams?
So maybe I'll try to tackle some of those questions because I talk to the AD pretty regularly now to answer some of those questions. Some of them are still up in the air, but NHIAA has indicated that we can go ahead with our fall season. They have not started practice yet where they're in football doing tackles and all that, so they've kept away from that, but they are getting closer to doing that. They are going to put all the protocols in place for temperature asking those pertinent questions before they come on the field about, who they've been with and have they been in contact with anyone. I know that Steve is debating the transportation issue and is considering asking parents if they're willing to drive the youngsters to a game. For all of us who had youngsters that played sports, we were at the game. They often wanted to be on the bus with their teammates, but in this case, we may see more parents driving their youngsters to the game so that we can put a team on the field. There's still a lot of questions about athletics. So, we know that. And again, I think Donna said it. We wait for additional guidance from the folks that help us out. So the kids are hungry for it, though. I just saw the enrollment on all the teams at the high school. Steve just sent me a list. Let me tell you, they're all they're hungry to play.
I have a senior fall school, so like we're waiting for that and SATs. So I'm just trying to.
Well, we're going to try to deliver. Yeah, we're trying to deliver on those things for the seniors. The seniors last year really, as you know, had really tough time, and we're hoping that we can do enough to keep our senior class involved in things that they love.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah Pratt.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was just wondering if you talk at all about potentially having, like, I have a high schooler, so that's why I'm on this session too. And so it's a little bit of a different question than I had before. I'm worried that my high schooler won't have the opportunity to take certain classes that he was looking forward to if he's a remote learner. So, if it's the advanced math or German 2, or he was signed up for some sort of like environmental science class. I mean, the remote learners, as I understand it, are going to have separate teachers. So does that mean that there's going to be just a limited selection of what they're ending up being able to take versus the hybrid students? Do you know what I'm asking?
Right. We've been talking with the principal, Mr. Reardon, and he's been working with his administrative team as well as teachers, putting together a schedule for what that might look like for the youngsters in each of the classes. Obviously, the basics, the algebra, the geometry, the calculus, those classes are really important to the youngsters. So I know that that's the first priority for them. That's how he explained it. English, math, the sciences, and the social studies, where they need to absolutely have their credits, right? But then they need the foreign languages to ensure that they have that as part of their credits for as they move on to college. So he's working on that. My best advice on that one is to stay tuned. We're working on that schedule for the kids.
Okay, I'm just hoping that'll be, because that would probably factor into the decision about whether to send him back or not. Like if he's going to miss out on a lot of classes he really wants, that might lead me away from remote. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That's a great question.
Tyler Cormier.
Hello. So I am a student who goes to Pembroke Academy, and I take the CRTC course for criminal justice. And I want to know, obviously, because I go to Pembroke Academy and I only take one class at Concord, there's going to be different procedures and stuff for actually taking and like going to the CRTC class. But I wanted to know if there were any, plans set in place for students who have to transfer to Concord to take the class.
Well, we are working on that. In an earlier slide that we had, we know that we have 9 sending schools that we're trying to accommodate. So what has been decided is that we are going to keep the Career Technical Center open every day, and even a little bit longer, so that we can get in labs and so forth. So I think the schedule will be there for you. But I'm not exactly sure how that will play out. So again, I'm going to say with the high school, particular classes like the one that you're talking about criminal justice, I would say stay tuned and you'll get some information on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kelly Qualey.
Hi, thank you for taking my question and thank you for having this forum tonight. So I'm a Deerfield parent. I have 3 boys in Concord High. One is a junior and my twins are sophomores. One of my twins also has special ed. That being said, if we go hybrid, how does that week look? For example, I know that with my son that's got an IEP, I don't want him pulled out. Concord's always been great with his schedule, 5 days a week with his team. Now that he's going to be in school 2 days a week and then maybe on a Wednesday, like how's the week going to look? Is it going to be just 3 days of learning and then they have 2 days off? Because I've got, with the 3 kids, there's a lot to juggle. So I kind of want a better concept of how their week's going to look. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, a fair question. So first of all, what we're thinking is that students in those vulnerable categories would have the option potentially working together as a team to come in more than just one more day. So potentially be able to come and work with, not to take the regular classes, but to get the support services that they need on the other days. And secondly, sorry, I'm going to think about what you asked. The high school currently has an 8-period day, and a lot of our students take between 6 and 8 classes. And the plan at this point is for them to go to a 4x4 block. That is to
+16037486617 is now exiting.
To go to a 4 block, which means that the students it would be more like college when you took 3 or 4 courses. And so it will look a little bit different than it did when you're trying to manage all of those classes. And the staff, the teachers are working will be working to think about, if I saw my student on Monday and Thursday, what are those pieces that I'm sending out to them on the other days? I've had some teachers ask about potentially live streaming from their classes, and that's still to be determined. But they are working to understand how the 2-day rotation will go in class, and then things that they're assigned. But also they're talking a lot about wanting students to collaborate, so they're going to make that be a piece of what they're talking about. So they have a lot of plans about that, and they'll be coming forth with those very soon, especially as soon as we hear from the board about the decision they'll make about the plan. So I'm sorry, that's a long-winded way to say that, but I hope that answered your question. Thank you for it. Lauren Orlando?
Don, I'm wondering if there's the capacity for students to take some of the classes that they're enrolled in remotely and some of them in person. So I'm thinking about, there are some classes that I think that there's some importance to be in person more than in others where perhaps it's easier to participate remotely. So I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
Totally lost power.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our superintendent is standing at my door. She's frozen. She's telling me she lost her power. So she's gonna come. She's gonna put her mask on and come into my office, and we'll work on that together. I'm really sorry. So hang on. I'm gonna do that, and we're gonna talk to you with our masks. But You asked about the possibility of being able to take courses in two different ways. First of all, I want to say that that VLAX is available to our students as it always is. And so we do have the ability to do remote VLAX courses, and students always can do that and have done that. But we don't have a model right now for a combination, and that's not to say we don't want to hear that question and explore those possibilities. But there's a lot of moving parts, and so we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. But the high school does have extra special questions than elementary school. It's quite different. And so, so Kathleen, we're talking about the idea of being able to do remote and in-person simultaneously. And so those are things that we want to hear from you and to be able to explore. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alana Kimball. All right, not hearing from Alana Kimball. I'm going to ask Kelly Mahoney. Can someone say that they can still hear me? I just want to make sure.
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Right, then,
I hear you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Then Christina Hill.
Donna, I think those are from the former sessions, and they may have gone off. The people that I'm seeing, the next one in line is Lise Belfinger.
Okay, I've been these have been texted to me just recently from the email, but we'll go to Lisa Boffinger. So go ahead, Lisa.
My question is really about it's really a facilities question. It's about the air handlers. I'm wondering about. I've been in the building for a long time, and when I think about going back in that building, the thing I think that concerns me is the changing of the air in that building. So I'm wondering what we've done in terms of any adjustments to the air handling.
So that's a good question, Lise. A couple of things to answer that. About 3 years ago, I mentioned earlier in the slide, we have over 1,000 air filters in the entire district. At the high school, we have 14 air handlers. They are maintained by an outside company, Train Air Systems, but we're also looking to increase, per the guidance that we've received, increase the airflow for bringing in 100% air from the outside. That too will go through a filter, and if we have any recirculation units, which we do throughout the high school and other areas of the district, those air circulation units too have filters in them that are changed every quarter. I also had mentioned we reached out to the mechanical engineers on record for who designed that, RFS Engineering out of Laconia. So I'm waiting a call back from them, but they understand what we're going to be asking them, and we'll provide more information when we get that.
And we also think we can run them at night. I know that historically we've shut them down at night. We're now thinking we can run them 24/7.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That is part of the guidance that comes from the state, from ASHRAE standards. They are suggesting that we run our air systems bringing in 100% outside air for 24 hours a day. So
that would be great. That would make
we
me
intend to do that.
better.
Yep. Sure. No, we'll follow that, and we'll do that through our building automation systems company, Siemens, to make sure it's scheduled.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Betsy Peabody.
Yes, thanks, Donna. I'm thinking about that sibling spreadsheet that you talked about in one of the earlier sessions, and how I'm wondering if it's been taken into consideration children that live in the same homes that are not necessarily identified as siblings. And I'm just thinking about the domino effect that happens if we don't get it quite right in terms of trying to line those children up on the same days.
Yes, that's a great point. I should have said siblings or same household, because the way we did our spreadsheet was by some other factors that help us know where they live. So we definitely are taking that into consideration. That's a great point, Betsy.
Perfect. Thanks, Donna.
I think Deb was on the last call, maybe forgot to put her hand down. Tammy D'Agostino, have we already called on you?
Nope.
No, didn't. I had a high school question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, I don't have to, though. I can let somebody else go.
Let's have Tammy go, and we'll come back to you, Deb. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So my question's for athletics, and I know that you probably cannot answer the question right now, but just to see if you're thinking about it. If it's a hybrid school week that you decide on, and the student has games or practices on his or her off days, and we live in Deerfield, so it's not as easy, like they can't walk there or get transportation very easily. Have you thought about how those kids would be able to get to those practices or games on those off days?
Thanks. That's a great question. I'm sorry. We're shifting seats here because my computer died on me. So we have talked about that, interestingly enough. But we talked about it with Concord kids. And we decided that, when the kids are out on remote or they're in a day that they're not in class, we would provide transportation for them so that they could get to either their games or their afternoon practices. However, we have not yet talked to the Deerfield folks, and that's on our list to do. We need to reach out, and I will reach out to the superintendent to go over the plan so that we have a nice transition for the kids. That should not, because they're in Deerfield, should not prevent them from participating in their high school athletics. So I will reach out. Thanks for bringing that up. I did not think about the Deerfield kids and that transportation issue on remote days. So great point. Thank you.
Deb Fitz, you're up.
Yeah, really quickly, again, Matt, Kathleen, Donna, thank you for all of your work on this. At Concord High School, is the proposal to do 2 days of skinny days or a crimson day and a tide day? The curious kids want to know.
I don't want to misspeak for Mr. Reardon. I know, as I said, that they're looking at this 4 block. And so they're looking at their periods being 90 minutes each. So there's no such thing as a skinny under that model. I hope that answers your question, and I'm sure Mr. Reardon will correct me if I've misspoken, but it's a 90-minute block.
I think so. I think the anxious high schoolers want to know what their schedule going to look like. Whether they know their actual classes or what the program will look like.
Donna, the simplest way to express that is that in the 4x4, as you said earlier, the kids are taking 6, 7, or 8 that they pre-registered for last year. So those classes are going to be split up between the 2 semesters. So it's not going to be tide days and so forth. It's going to be first semester and second semester. So we'll have 4 classes each semester within a 9-minute format, or 3 perhaps, 3 or 4.
Okay, so we're moving from a block to the 4x4. All right, thank you.
Yes. Maria Moraes. Chris B. Oh, Chris B just disappeared. I'm going to put his hand down. Dawn Seduto.
Hi. I'd like to ask a question about clubs other than your sports clubs. So if it's safe for your sports teams to be active and participating, what about your other teams, like your robotics team?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mr. Reardon, do you want to field that one?
Sure. Yeah, we're committed as much as we can to having sports and co-curriculars be a vital part of this upcoming school year. Just around the issues that Donna had talked about earlier, around the kids' social and emotional well-being. That's a huge part of school. They're called co-curriculars because kids learn as much in them as they do in a traditional classroom. So we are very much committed to keeping that going. We have to work out the details. The devil's always in the details, but that's very much part of our plan.
Thank you.
Hold on. Have I said Lynn Vinskus? You're up. Lynn Vinskus?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I emailed this, and so this isn't really a question, but it was mentioned that the prep days at the beginning of the school year might not all be needed if we were going full remote. And so my comment was just, if we are going full remote, I believe we would need those extra prep days as well, just because I know for being in the science department, a lot of our classes are hands-on and project-based, and so changing that would take a lot. So I would just advocate for the extra days, whether we go remote or hybrid.
Thanks, Lynn. KP? KP? Catherine Kilday?
Hi, I just have a question about the freshmen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Normally we have an orientation day for our newest Concord High School members. So is there any plan for how to help freshmen and ninth graders orient to the new high school environment?
Yeah, we are definitely, we were talking about that today. We're going to have a full-throated freshman orientation program. The difference being it's going to take place over, I think, 3 days. And we're going to bring kids in about 25 student groups so we can keep them socially distanced as we take them around the school and introduce them to different people in different places. But that is definitely going to be part, and it's an important part of school. It's a big building, kids need to get some orientation. So that's coming, and we'll send out the information on it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Steve Mello?
Hi, Donna. I just wanted to address the lady from Deerfield. We have discussed that. Just so happens that the director of transportation lives in Deerfield, so he has a nice idea, some ideas on how to make that work. We value our Deerfield students, and we will figure out a way to get them where they need to be. We are definitely, that's in our process.
Good.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Kim Peasley?
Hi, thank you. I actually just had a comment. I just wanted to thank you all. So I don't really have a specific question, but since you called my name, I thought I'd weigh in. Thanks, everybody. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Elena Leon?
Hi, I had a question in terms of timing. I don't know how much of this you already know, but assuming the board meeting is on the 3rd, and the first day of school, let's say, is on the 8th, so that's about 4 weeks, maybe a little bit more. Do you know about when the schedules would be available to students so they would know what they're doing?
Yeah, well, first, just to give you perhaps an obvious background, we've asked our guidance counselors, and particularly John Flower, to redo the entire schedule because we're adopting this 4x4. As Donna pointed out, we're usually in year-long classes, 6, 7, 8 classes. So he's had to redo the whole thing. We're also adding in, obviously, the remote academy, as we're calling it. But I would suspect that someplace around August 10th might be a reasonable time to expect that we would be ready to send those schedules out.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I'm sorry. So that those schedules would meet the minimum required classes, but we're still open about electives and other things?
Yeah, again, and forgive the education speak, but in a 4x4, you're taking 3 or 4 classes one semester, 3 or 4 classes a second semester. So if your student signed up for 6, 7, or 8 classes in a year-long format, you would expect that he or she would have all 6, 7, or 8 of those classes. They would just be half in one semester and half in the other.
Okay, thank you.
Liz York?
Me?
Yes, Liz?
Great. Hi, Donna. It's Beth York from Concord High School.
Hi, Beth.
I had a question about the impact of the 4x4 model on students with their English electives. Normally, they take a semester-long class each semester. They've got one English class as seniors, for example, to close. And I was wondering if some thought had gone into how these kids in a 4x4 model would be able to earn the full credit of English they need for their senior year.
So Beth, you're saying they, for kids and as seniors who need to take more than one English, is that the question?
Yes,
Well,
it is, Mike. Yep.
You want me to take that one?
Sure, knock yourself out.
Hi, Beth. Beth, in the 4x4, a semester class merely goes to a quarter. So a senior who had signed up for 2 electives will still have both of those electives. It just happens in a quarter instead of a semester.
Terrific. That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Chalaskis. I appreciate that. All right. Last name D'Agostino, and I'm sorry I don't know your first name.
I already asked my question. Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm obviously coming back. All right. I think well, let me just ask this. Lisa, Betsy, Dawn, and Karen Talbot. You have your hand up. The other 3, you've already asked questions. I'm not sure if you have more, though.
+1 6 0 3 4 9 1 3
So,
4
keep your hand
2
up if
1.
you still have a question. Karen
now
Talbot,
exiting.
your turn.
I'm just curious on how the credits are going to work. For instance, my daughter is about to be a junior. How is she going to get all of the extracurricular credits or the specials, or however you want to term it, credits that will add up to the maximum that she needs to graduate?
You're speaking of things like music and so forth?
Exactly.
Obviously, music, chorus, band presents some very special problems in this type of format. However, our music teachers are contemplating working with, for example, in the band, working with small groups of them at any given time, so that they can be distanced sufficiently and still work on their music. So, there's no question that, the same deal prevails with art instruction. Unless you're doing something like art history, if you're actually asking the kids to produce art, it just becomes a very difficult way to go about doing it. But not dissimilarly to what I just said about the music teachers, all of the teachers in those quote unquote special areas are working on ways to engage the kids so that they get what they need. And with that said, I'll just say very quickly, because I know there's other people, but this is not going to be perfect. There's no schedule, even a regular schedule is not perfect. So we're not going to be able to do everything, but we think we're going to be able to do most things, and we think we're going to be able to do most things really well. So we just ask for your patience as we do that.
Mike, I'm going to ask one more question on behalf of a parent, and then we're going to wrap up. The question is, and it's kind of connected to something I said about transition activities. We were talking about kindergarten screening, but in this case, it's freshmen coming in, or people who have never been to the school having a tour. Is your team working on ways that students can get familiar with the school who haven't been there, and some of those kinds of things?
Yes, actually, somebody just asked that question a couple of questions ago, Donna. We are going to have a full freshman orientation program, except that it's going to be conducted over 3 days. And that will allow us to bring in relatively small groups, about 25 freshman students at a time. But they're going to have a full program including something to eat, which is always an important factor. So, soon as we're talking about dates today, and as soon as we get a few more details nailed down, we'll get that information out to everyone.
Well, I think that just about does it. I just want to first of all, thank everyone and for everyone's patience as we got through some of the little glitches this evening.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just curious, for those of us who asked questions via email and didn't get called on, how do you plan on answering those questions?
Yeah, we'll respond back to them via email. And also, one of the other things that we're doing is we have a list of questions that have been sent to us, and we're creating a document that will have all of those questions and answers, and we'll post those on the website.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. Great question. Thank you. But I do appreciate everyone here. All the feedback has been tremendous. I encourage people to continue to send the emails. And if you find out that somebody wasn't able to be here this evening, or that the numbers got really high for a while, that they couldn't get in, I don't know if that happened with this session, but we're repeating this whole thing Thursday night, starting at 5 o'clock with our elementary, 6 with middle, and 7 o'clock for high school. We'll do it again. And then again, the board has said that they will have the opportunity for folks to share their thinking also on August 3rd. So thanks to everyone. Thanks for the contributions. We really appreciate it. I think Mike said it best. We know it's not perfect, but we're going to strive and do everything we can to ensure that our kids in Concord have a good school year. So thanks so much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.